Chapter 420. Now that the sea god's semi-divine weapon was right in front of them, how could they not be excited? Feng Wu quietly stayed by Ming Xi's side. She had no interest in the sea god's body that was covered in ornaments. This girl didn't care much about sacred or divine weapons. She already had Xiaochun, so other weapons were useless to her. Feng Wu girl didn't plan on fighting for these useless things. Feng Wu was the only one who thought this way. Most of the people were already rubbing their hands and waiting to strip the sea god naked. They might not even leave the sea god's underwear behind. A bunch of idiots. My baby, who was originally sitting quietly on Feng Wu's head, suddenly opened its mouth and said a few words. Feng Wu was a little confused. She touched the eggshell on baby's head in confusion. The sea god is famous for being stingy. He won't give away his things to others. Just wait and see, these people who want to steal the sea god's things are going to be in trouble. Baby's voice was filled with schadenfreude. The sea god's divine items were famous for being bad. If he was a kind god, he wouldn't have used the mortal emperor's tomb to protect his god's tomb. So if this guy really thought that the sea god was so generous, he was gravely mistaken. Baby and Feng Wu's conversation was only through consciousness transmission, so the others didn't hear it. Feng Wu knew that baby was very smart. Feng Wu girl always believed what it said. After all, baby had never been wrong. She grabbed Ming Xi's hand and held it tightly, not letting go no matter what. Ming Xi thought that she was afraid. Instead, he gently patted the back of her hand with his other hand to make her relax a little. Other than Feng Wu, there was another person who wasn't interested in the sea god's things. It was Xia Zhuo. Xia Zhuo only had one goal in entering the god's tomb, and that was the Heart of Water. He had to obtain the Heart of Water and could not let it fall into Zicheng's hands. Xia Zhuo had already heard about the location of the Heart of Water from Zicheng's friends. He had already made up his mind. When these people started fighting over the treasures, he would seize the opportunity to obtain the Heart of Water. The location of the Heart of Water was very special. It wasn't in the main hall, but in the lotus pond outside the main hall. The Heart of Water was hidden in the lotus pond. Zicheng's friend said that after Zicheng entered the tomb of the god of sin, she directly fell into this lotus pond. When she waved her hand in the water, she accidentally grabbed a cold and soft thing. When she picked it up, she realized that it was the legendary Heart of Water. This Heart of Water should have been formed not long ago. If it hadn't grown up in the sea god's tomb and absorbed the weak divinity occasionally emitted by the sea god, this Heart of Water wouldn't have given birth to sentience so early. Yes, the Heart of Water that Zicheng picked up had sentience. Although it was weak, it still had its own consciousness. Although he didn't know why Zicheng didn't fall into the lotus pond, he couldn't miss this opportunity. He had to take advantage of the chaos to obtain the Heart of Water. Just as Xia Zhuo made up his mind, someone finally couldn't resist the temptation and made a move. The first person to make a move rushed forward and extended his hand to grab a demigod artifact from the sea god's body. When their hand approached the sea god's body suddenly emitted a soft blue light. When the blue light appeared, the person who made the first move flew out one by one as if they were hit by something. Sure enough, it wasn't easy to take something from the sea god's body. Although the sea god had been dead for 10,000 years, it wasn't easy to succeed. Ah! Damn it! The people who were sent flying all screamed and cursed. This attack made them regain their senses. These people finally understood that they weren't facing the corpse of an ordinary person, but the body of a sea god. Even if the consciousness of this body had disappeared, just the divinity of this body wasn't something they could mess around with. No one noticed that when the sea god launched this attack, a figure disappeared from the hall. Everyone stared at the sea god with rapt attention, afraid that she would make her next move. Fortunately, the sea god didn't do anything else after this attack. She still sat there with her eyes closed and her scepter in her hand, as if she was asleep. After this battle, the people who wanted to make a move didn't dare to. However, Ming Xi knew that the current peace was only temporary. No one could resist the temptation of these semi-divine tools. For the sake of their desires, it was only a matter of time before they rushed forward to snatch food from the tiger's mouth. As he thought, After 5 minutes of peace, some people could no longer hold themselves back and charged forward again. The number of people who charged forward was even greater than the first time. These people had come prepared. They had already used all kinds of methods to protect themselves from the sea god's attack. A group of people yelled and charged at the sea god. Their eyes were filled with greed. Another blue light flashed. Most people were already prepared, so not many people were hit by the attack. Most of them managed to escape the attack. A few lucky ones even managed to grab an accessory from the sea god's body. It's a sacred weapon. I'm also someone who has a saint artifact. A man shouted loudly. It's a legendary weapon, why isn't it a semi-divine tool? Someone grumbled. Why didn't I get anything? The people who didn't manage to get anything were even more dissatisfied. After someone made a good start, everyone's passion was aroused. They were more enthusiastic than ever about grabbing something from the sea god's body. They all charged forward recklessly, trying to grab a piece of treasure from the sea god's body, even if it was just an ordinary piece of legendary equipment. That being said, even the most ordinary items were only comparable to the sea god's other possessions. A piece of legendary equipment was priceless in the outside world. The crowd almost went crazy trying to snatch something from the sea god's body. She pulled Fengwu to the side and hid. He did not join the crowd. His identity was noble, and he had seen countless treasures since he was young. Why would he want to compete with these people? Irene and Zicheng also joined the crowd. Even though there were so many people trying to snatch the sea god's equipment, only a few succeeded. Most people were knocked flying before they could even touch the corner of the sea god's clothes. Meanwhile, those who managed to snatch the sea god's equipment ended up as the targets of the others. A battle of life and death took place in the hall for the precious magic equipment. The clean hall was soon dyed red with blood. The air was filled with the smell of blood. To everyone's surprise, no one had died at the hands of the sea god, but at the hands of their own kind instead. The greed of human nature was magnified. Chapter 421. Fresh blood splattered across the hall. The sea god sat on the throne with an expressionless face. His eyes were still closed, like a puppet. However, as the smell of blood in the hall grew stronger, the sea god's heart began to beat rapidly. The heartbeat was not loud, so the people who were busy competing for the treasures did not notice it. Only a few people who did not participate in the chaotic battle noticed the anomaly. Immediately, the faces of the people who noticed the anomaly changed, and they all took a few steps back. Meanwhile, the people who were fighting over the magic equipment were still busy fighting over the advanced magic equipment that was rarely seen in the outside world. It's mine. The half-martial tool is mine. Give it to me. I saw it first. Don't even think about taking it from me, it's mine. Hand over the half-martial tool, or I'll kill you. Thump 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 thump. The heartbeat grew heavier. Even the people who were blinded by the benefits before them finally heard it. What's that sound? Someone asked in fear. It sounds like a heartbeat. Yeah, it's a heartbeat. It's coming from the sea god's body. Could it be that the sea god is still alive? This guess successfully scared a lot of people. Stop guessing, the sea god is already dead. If he's still alive, why didn't he return to the realm of the gods? Why did he build a tomb like this in the human world? The person analyzed the situation rationally. That being said, it did make sense. At least, no one dared to question the sea god's survival anymore. But what's going on? Why would a dead person have a heartbeat? The heartbeat continued to grow louder and more frequent. For some reason, they felt like their hearts were beating faster, too. That's right, why would a dead person have a heartbeat? Everyone knew that the heart would only start beating when a person was alive. Once a person died, their heart would stop beating, too. It was impossible for them to still have a heartbeat. Yeah, this is too strange. Why is it like this? The crowd could not figure it out. No one dared to go forward to compete for the magic equipment after being frightened by the heartbeat. Everyone took a few steps back in unison. No one dared to go any closer. Their eyes were filled with uneasiness, which grew stronger as the heartbeat grew louder. Ah! Why is this happening, my heart? It hurts. Stop it. Don't beat anymore, it hurts. As the heartbeat grew louder and louder, everyone present suddenly clutched their chests. Their faces turned pale as they fell to the ground in cold sweat. They felt their heartbeats getting faster and faster, as if their hearts were about to explode. It hurt, it really hurt. The shadow of death suddenly descended, and everyone lost their minds at this moment. Ming Shi and Feng Wu did not fall to the ground like everyone else, but the two of them were not much better. Their heartbeats were obviously several times faster than normal. If this continued, their hearts would definitely overload, and everyone would die here. Ming Shi had the blood of a god. Although he did not have a god body, the sea god's heart could still affect him. The effect was much smaller than the others. Aside from his pale face and bloodless lips, he was not in unbearable pain like the others. Feng Wu did not look well either. Feng Wu was just an ordinary person. She did not have the blood of a god to protect her body. Although she had a divine weapon like the pure sword's function was to purify. It had no effect on other things. The damage she suffered was definitely much greater than Ming Shi's. Her heart was about to explode. The pure sword emitted a faint white light to protect her heart, but it still could not completely relieve her of the pain. The sea god did not have any evil power. The pure sword could not attack anything that was not within its purification range. Ming Shi looked at Feng Wu's pained expression. He knew that if he did not act now, Feng Wu and the others would die here. He used the pure sword to support himself on the ground and slowly stood up. He had to do something to stop the heartbeat. Remove the seal. Just as Ming Shi wanted to do something to stop the sea god, two voices suddenly sounded. Suddenly, two voices rang out beside him, surprising him. These two voices were very familiar to him. They were the Margaret siblings. Ming Shi turned his head and saw that there were two different patterns between the siblings' eyebrows. A pink peach blossom mark appeared between Margaret's eyebrows, while a camellia mark appeared between Matson's eyebrows. The siblings' bodies had also undergone a huge change. Firstly, they no longer looked like how they usually did. Margaret had a playful smile on her face. She was wearing a long white dress and had cute pink hair. A green staff fell from the sky into her hands. There seemed to be many strange flowers and herbs engraved on the staff. This was the 100-flower staff, the divine weapon of the god of spring. Matson's appearance had also changed from a young man who could only be considered decent to a handsome young man with brown hair. He was wearing a magic robe, and the long sword in his hand had also disappeared. Right now, he was holding a golden staff in his hand. This staff was completely golden, and there was an image of golden leaves engraved on it. Each leaf seemed to have a strange power. This was the divine weapon that represented the autumn god, falling leaves. Spring flower autumn moon. Margaret's pink lips parted slightly. As she said these 4 words, a gentle breeze suddenly appeared in the hall. The wind seemed to carry peach blossoms that flew towards the sea god. The sea god's originally tightly shut eyes opened at this moment. There were still no emotions in his eyes. His gaze was numb and he looked like a puppet. This was not surprising. No matter how awesome he looked, it could not change the fact that he was already a dead man. How could a dead man show any emotions in his eyes? Autumn, take these people and leave first. Margaret's brows furrowed slightly as she spoke to Matson without even turning her head. Okay, Phaser, be careful. After Matson replied, he waved the staff in his hand. Everyone in the hall disappeared, including Ming Shi and Feng Wu. Matson leaped lightly off the ground. Just as he was about to leave, he suddenly sensed something. He slowly descended from the sky and landed beside the lotus pond in the garden. Shouzo held the heart of water in his hand excitedly. He had finally done it. The heart of water. He had finally succeeded in stopping Zicheng from obtaining this treasure that was related to the future of mankind. This time, he could not let Zicheng obtain it. Not only the heart of water, but also the hearts of metal, fire, earth, wood, and wood. He would not let someone like Zicheng obtain them. Chapter 422. At that moment, Xiazhua finally had some confidence in changing the direction of the future. He had returned to 100 years ago because he was afraid that he couldn't change the future. If the future couldn't be changed, then his rebirth would be meaningless. Fortunately, the future could be changed, and he finally did it. The butler and Yuan Yuan were also very excited. They were people who truly cared about Xiazhua. Before entering the tomb, Xiazhua had already told them that the heart of water could improve Xiazhua's body. In their minds, as long as Xiazhua obtained the heart of water, he could change his talent and no longer have to look at the so-called geniuses in the family. It's the heart of water. So the heart of water is in a place like this. A faint voice suddenly came from behind the three of them. There was someone. The three of them turned around and saw a handsome man holding a staff looking at the heart of water in Xiazhua's hand. His eyes had a trace of surprise, but there was no greed. Who are you? What do you want? The butler and Yuan Yuan stared at the young man as if they were facing a great enemy. To be able to appear behind them without them noticing, the two of them didn't dare to underestimate the young man's strength. It was too strange. A person with such strength should be very eye-catching. Why had they never seen him among those people? The two of them couldn't figure it out, but they didn't dare to relax. Autumn Sage. Xiazhua saw the appearance of the person and sighed in relief. He didn't recognize the man in front of him now, but 100 years later, he would. This man was one of the 4 Seasons Saint Emissaries, the Autumn Saint Emissary who represented autumn. The Autumn Saint Emissary was the successor of the Mid-Autumn Divine Seal. He controlled the divine weapon, the Fallen Leaves Divine Staff. Legend has it that the Autumn Saint came from the ancient Eastern country. He was an orphan who grew up in a temple. Later on, when he was 12 years old, the divine mark of autumn from the upper realm resonated with him and descended upon his body. From then on, an ordinary orphan became the successor of the divine mark and one of the 4 sages of Star Temple. Among the 4 seasoned sages, Autumn should be the oldest. He should be 23 years old now and officially took over the responsibility of the Autumn Sage. In his previous life, in order to prevent the destruction of the world, the Saint of Autumn used her own body to repair the cracks in space, buying more time for all humans to think of a way to resolve the danger of the world's destruction. It could be said that without the sacrifice of the Autumn Saint, the world would have been destroyed before he could return to the past. Xiazhua was full of admiration for such a person who was willing to sacrifice himself to save the world. You know me? Autumn did not expect that someone would recognize him. He had taken over the position of saint for 2 years, and was the only one of the 2 4-season saints who had officially taken up the position. Although he had solved many problems in the past 2 years, there were not many people who had seen him before. How did this young man know that it was him? Of course, Xiazhua couldn't answer this question. He couldn't tell anyone that he was reborn from the future. The fewer people who knew, the better. Fortunately, the situation was urgent and Autumn did not have the time to ask such a small question. Forget it, let's not talk about it for now. You guys leave with me first. With a wave of his staff, before the 3 of them could react, they had already appeared in a special space. This space was filled with many villages and camellias. Many people were sitting under a large tree, each of them clutching their chests as if they had suffered heavy injuries. Xiazhua's heart tightened, and he hurriedly searched for Kaiser, Elisa, and the others in the crowd. Outside the sea god's tomb, Ajur suddenly felt 2 holy auras break through the sky and rush into the sea, entering the sea god's tomb. Ajur's eyes widened. This aura. Could it be them? Not long after the 2 auras appeared, a handsome man with brown hair broke through the water's surface. He slowly flew out of the water and landed on Ajur's ship. Who are you? Who allowed you to come on the ship? Riot and Mo Gue's eyes widened nervously as they looked at the newcomer. This person seemed very strong. Heavens, he wasn't here to cause trouble, was he? The 2 of them wailed in their hearts. When the people waiting on the other ship saw someone come out, they immediately looked into the water, hoping that the person they were waiting for would also come out of the water. Unfortunately, they didn't see a single person after waiting for a long time. Why are you here? Ajur had been wondering if it was those 2 fellows. He didn't expect it to be true. Wait a moment. Autumn smiled and waved her staff. Suddenly, a large group of people appeared on Ajur's ship like a human pyramid. There were at least 200 people on the ship. Their ship wasn't that big, so it would be strange if they didn't stack up. Fortunately, Ming Shi and Feng Wu were lucky. They weren't the ones at the bottom. Senior Ming Shi. Riot was very excited. Because of the triangular relationship between O'Brien and the other two, he was almost mentally and physically exhausted. It wasn't easy for him to see someone who could make decisions. How could he not be happy? If it weren't for the fact that this wasn't the right place, this usually serious youth might have even done a lap dance to celebrate his good fortune. Heavens! Who's on top of me? Get off me immediately! It's so heavy. Whose butt isn't moving? Who the F***CK is on top of me? Get off me! Don't push! Get up, it's so heavy! A large number of screams sounded at the same time. Feng Wu and Ming Shi had been pulled aside by Ajur and the others at the first moment, so they didn't end up like the others. The ships waiting on the side saw this scene and immediately came over to pick them up. Quite a few people boarded the boats that their families were waiting for, but before they left, they all solemnly thanked Autumn for saving their lives. If it weren't for him and the other girl, they would most likely be dead by now. Another group of people waited for the majority to leave before boarding their own ships. They were all deeply grateful for Autumn's life-saving grace. Thanks. As for the Tomb of the Gods, no one wanted to enter it a second time. Finally, after everyone had returned to their own ships, Ajur had a chance to talk to Autumn. Hurry up and tell me. Why are you here? Ajur patted Autumn's chest impolitely. As one of the future four saints, he naturally wasn't unfamiliar with this Autumn saint who had already taken office. Let's go in and talk. Autumn smiled helplessly. Ajur's personality was still so impatient. Riot and the others had many things to ask, but they could see that Ajur and this mysterious person had something to talk about. They didn't want to disturb them, so they all got up and left. Feng Yanran wanted to stay and listen to what was going on, but since everyone had left, it wasn't good for her to stay. She could only leave unwillingly. Chapter 423. Through Chio's explanation, Ajur and Ming Shi finally understood why Chio and Chun were here. So it was the High Priestess who predicted that I would be in danger and had Chio and Chun hide by my side. Ming Shi did not expect that Chio and Chun would appear here because of him. Star Hall's High Priestess predicted that he would encounter a calamity. If no one helped him, he would be in great trouble. Although he would not die, his vitality would be greatly damaged. The position of the four great emperors was extremely important in the human world. The successors of the four great emperors were also protected by the Star Hall. Once the Star Hall discovered that the successor was in danger, they would immediately send people to protect the successor. This was the case this time. When the High Priestess discovered that Ming Shi, the future crown prince of the Silver Moon Ancient Kingdom, might encounter some unexpected danger, she immediately sent 2 sacred emissaries to protect him. This was why the 2 of them disguised themselves as siblings and met Ming Shi by chance. In order to not let Ming Shi discover their identities, the sacred emissary of Spring, Scarlet, and sacred emissary of Autumn, Ma Jia, spent a lot of effort. When Ming Shi's soul was sucked into the Island of Death, they almost could not help but rush in to save him. Fortunately, after contacting the High Priestess and learning that Ming Shi's calamity was not here, the 2 of them gave up on the idea and waited for Ming Shi to return from the Island of Death. Fortunately, they did manage to wait until the end. Ming Shi had indeed returned alive. After knowing that Margaret and Margaret were his future colleagues, Spring and Autumn, Ajur was dumbfounded. These 2 had been hiding under his nose for so long without him noticing. Although he had long suspected that the siblings were sent by the Star Hall, he did not expect that the Star Hall would send sacred emissaries. Moreover, they were his future colleagues. This was not a good feeling. After explaining the identities of the 2 people, a huge water column suddenly appeared in the sea. The water column was several feet high and looked majestic. After the water column appeared, it disappeared in a few breaths of time. However, It caused many nearby ships to overturn because of the sound. Fortunately, no one was injured. When the water column disappeared, a pink-haired girl in a white dress appeared in the air. The 100-flower staff in her hand had disappeared. Her beautiful figure slowly descended from the sky and landed on Ming Shi's ship, causing many to speculate about her identity. Phew, it's finally done. Scarlet walked into the cabin with a relaxed expression. What did you do with the sea god? Ajur was familiar with Scarlet. He asked as soon as he saw her come in. Ming Shi had already explained what they might have encountered in the sea god's tomb. Ming Shi's storytelling ability was much better than Feng Wu's. With Ming Shi's simple words, the thrilling scene of the battle appeared in front of Ajur's eyes. He broke out in a cold sweat on their behalf. Nothing much. I just sealed the sea god's tomb again. I don't think anyone will be able to find it this time. Scarlet blinked nonchalantly and said playfully. The tomb of the sea god had been sealed once more. As expected of the Four Seasons' holy envoy, Ajur could not reseal the tomb of the sea god as he was now. Hearing that the core of the tomb had been sealed, Ming Shi breathed a sigh of relief. The sea god's tomb was too dangerous. It was better to keep it hidden in the sea forever. Feng Wu was worried about the king's spirit and the others. The king's spirit wanted to save the souls of the other kings, so he did not reincarnate. She did not know how they were doing now. Don't worry about Xiao Wu. They've already reincarnated. Bao Bao sat on Feng Wu's head and sent a message to Feng Wu. That's good. Knowing that the king's spirit and the others had reincarnated, Feng Wu breathed a sigh of relief. As long as they were fine, she was relieved. As early as the last stage of the Tomb of the Gods, Bao Bao had already let the spirit of kings and the others reincarnate. They were all spirits and should have been reincarnated long ago, but because of the selfishness of the sea god, they had suffered for 10,000 years in this world. Now, at the last stage, the spirit of kings and the others could no longer help. No matter how strong a spirit was, it did not have any advantage in front of a god. Not only that, their spirits would also be harmed by the god's aura. Since there was no use for them to stay, Bao Bao decided to let the king's spirit and the others reincarnate. Fortunately, they had left quickly. Otherwise, it was hard to say whether they would have been sealed together with the sea god. Write this. Phaser said as she took out a golden staff with sapphires from her space ring. Ming Shi and Feng Wu understood at a glance. Wasn't this the staff of the sea god? It had fallen to the level of a demigod artifact, but it was still a rare treasure. If it was discovered, who knew how many people would fight over it? Phaser took it out to see if Feng Wu wanted it. It was a treasure to others, but to Phaser, who had a divine artifact, it held no attraction. Without waiting for her to finish speaking, the sea god's staff turned into a ray of light and flew into the sky. Seeing the demigod artifact disappear, Spring Crimson shrugged. I wanted to give it to Xiao Wu to play with, but it looks like that won't be possible. It already has a trace of intelligence. Divine artifacts with intelligence will take responsibility for their masters. It looks like it's gone to find a new master, Moria said. Feng Wu didn't feel anything special about losing a demigod artifact like the sea god's staff, even if she knew that Phaser had originally wanted to give it to her to play with. The curtains were finally drawn on the sea god's tomb. Ajur told Ming Shi about the return of Feng Yanran and the others, but Ming Shi didn't comment on their return. He would only report the trio's performance to the academy as it was. As for how the academy would deal with them, that wasn't something Ming Shi cared about. Standing at the entrance of Notre Dame du Starlight, Riot felt as if he'd been reborn. Along the way, he'd encountered countless disasters, both big and small, and the trio who were experts at tricking their teammates. He really felt that the only reason he'd come back alive was because he'd been too successful as a magician in his past life. We're finally back. We're going to have a big meal later to get over the shock. Riot felt that eating more was the only way to recover the courage he'd lost from excessive worry. I want to go too. Senior Riot, you don't mind treating us juniors to a meal, right? Ajur didn't forget to help him and Feng Wu. Feng Wu, eyes shining yummy food. Riot's mouth twitched. The meal opposite them seemed a little expensive, but he wasn't a stingy person. Though he felt a little pained about the money, he still nodded and agreed to treat them. Chapter 424. It didn't seem right to only invite Ajur and Fengwu, so he asked the others if they wanted to eat together. As expected, Ming Shi, Feng Yanran, and the other two said they had something to do, but Mo Gue agreed without hesitation. After entering the school, everyone said their goodbyes and went back to their own dorms to tidy up. Feng Wu led Xiao Yi into the dormitory with the key. The dormitory was very clean and it was obvious that someone had cleaned it. Sure enough, when Silda heard the door open and came downstairs, his eyes lit up when he saw Fengwu. Even Anika had returned to the dorm. The three girls sat together, making tea, chatting, and eating snacks. Xiao Wu, why are you only back now? Classes will officially start in 2 days. Most of the people who are supposed to go back to school are already back, except for you and Rika. We couldn't get in touch with you, so we were worried that something might have happened to you that affected your return to school. Anika ate the snacks Fengwu brought back from Falling Jade Island, her face full of satisfaction. The snacks were delicious, crispy, sweet, and fragrant. She had to give it a thumbs up. We went to the tomb of the god of sin. Fengwu gnawed on a snack like a little squirrel, her eating speed as fast as ever. The tomb of the god of sin. The tomb of the sea god that's been the talk of the town. I heard that it's very dangerous, and many people have died there. Why would you want to go to such a dangerous place? Tell us what happened on your way there. Silda was clearly very curious about what had happened to Fengwu's group. Fengwu didn't have a talent for storytelling, so the story from her mouth wasn't very entertaining. It was like reading a poem without any emotional fluctuations. Still, Silda and Anika listened with keen interest. Did you meet Rika in the tomb of the god of sin? Anika drank her fruit tea. Fengwu thought for a moment. I met her once, but I didn't see her again. Fengwu had gone through several instances of the tomb of the god of sin, but she had only met Rika once. She'll be fine, right? Anika asked worriedly. Although Rika had a bad personality, was competitive, and was very arrogant, she and Anika were still close because they were in the same department and class. Rika hadn't come back yet, and Anika was the one who was most worried about her. It's okay, he's still alive, Fengwu said seriously. The corner of Anika's mouth twitched. She was relieved, as long as he was alive. After chatting with Zilda and the others for a while, Fengwu brought Xiao Yi to Elliot's dinner party. Xiao Yi was held in Fengwu's arms, and his black eyes were wide open. Little White followed closely behind Fengwu. When they arrived, Riot, Mo Gue, and Ajur were already waiting for them. Fengwu had been delayed by chatting with her roommates, so the three of them had arrived more than 10 minutes ago. They had even ordered the dishes. Xiao Wu, come and sit. I've already ordered your favorite dishes. Ajur waved. Mogue's mouth twitched. Was there anything Fengwu didn't like to eat? She didn't seem to be a picky eater. Riot couldn't be bothered with them, and asked the waiter to serve the dishes. There were only 4 of them, but they had ordered more than 20 dishes. They were determined to eat. Fengwu's heart suddenly skipped a beat. She felt a malicious gaze fixed on her from behind. She turned around, but didn't see anything. She ignored it and sat down to eat. In a private room that Fengwu couldn't see, Eve was glaring at Fengwu through the door. Eve was looking for a chance to take out Fengwu in the tomb of the god of sin, but she never had the chance. Their group had encountered a great danger during the trip to the tomb of the god of sin. Luckily, they were saved by a mysterious person in the end. However, the mysterious person had stayed on Fengwu's boat after saving them. Eve was extremely displeased by it. Why would someone so powerful be friends with Fengwu? Even though she had met a lot of people that she rarely met, Eve was well aware of her family's background. They were only willing to talk to her because of Zicheng. If it weren't for Zicheng, no one would bother with a daughter of a small clan like her. Even though she was never jealous of Zicheng's popularity, she was unwilling to lose to someone like Fengwu, who she had always looked down on. Rika had also survived the trip to the tomb of the god of sin. She was lucky enough to find a legendary magic ring suitable for a water magician. The ring was not given to her by Zicheng. Rika was lucky enough to find it. Eve had also found a legendary defensive necklace suitable for her. Zicheng had given it to Eve. Eve was happy to wear the necklace for a few days. Zicheng had found a half-magic level crown. It was an accessory worn by the god of sea. Zicheng had managed to snatch it. It was quite a shocking haul. It should be known that for many people who entered the divine tomb, it was already a miracle for them to be able to survive safely, let alone bring out so many good things. If the three of them were to tell others about their harvest, they would definitely be envied to death. Eve, what are you looking at? Rika glanced in the direction Eve was looking at. I'm looking at someone I hate, Eve said in a disgusted tone. Eve, stop it. Fengwu isn't a bad person. Why do you hate her so much? Zicheng said helplessly. Zicheng already knew Eve had a strong grudge against Fengwu, even though the grudge seemed to come out of nowhere. I just can't stand her pretending to be innocent. She's hanging out with these men every day, yet she still pretends to be innocent. It's so disgusting. Eve poured herself a glass of wine and downed half of it in a single gulp. Zicheng pulled her hand down to stop her from drinking. Don't drink so much, we still have to go back to school. I know. Eve put down the glass and didn't continue drinking. If you don't like her, then we'll have less contact with her in the future. Don't think of ways to deal with Fengwu. She's still our classmate. If you make a move on her for no reason, the school won't let you off. Zicheng softly persuaded. Rika's eyes darkened. Zicheng is right. If you make a move on her, then you'll be implicated. It's not worth it. But I just can't accept it. I don't want to let her go. I want her to die. Eve didn't hide her killing intent towards Fengwu. Eve had never been a forgiving person. If it weren't for the fact that Zicheng had the favorability system, their friendship would have capsized long ago as Zicheng became more and more popular. Because of the favorability system's absolute control, Eve couldn't have any other thoughts towards Zicheng. She couldn't have any negative feelings towards Zicheng. Chapter 425. Zicheng looked at Eve helplessly. She knew that Eve had always held a strong enmity towards Fengwu. She had asked Eve many times, but the only answer she got was that she didn't like Fengwu and wanted Fengwu to die. She really didn't know what to say. Eve's personality was so extreme. If it wasn't for the fact that Eve's favorability towards her had increased to 100%, she definitely wouldn't want to interact with such an extreme person. This kind of person wasn't easy to control and was too narrow-minded. If she accidentally hurt her glass heart, she would become the poisonous snake in the story of the farmer and the snake and be bitten to death by her. Fortunately, she had the favorability system. Even if Eve's personality was problematic, it wasn't a problem to her. Compared to Eve, Zicheng discreetly sized up Rika. This Rika was actually a problem. She kept feeling that Rika seemed to have discovered something. Rika's favorability towards her didn't increase at all. It even dropped from 70 to around 60. What was going on? She had always treated Rika well. Although she didn't treat her as unreservedly as she treated Eve, she didn't treat her badly either. Why did her favorability increase so much? Could it be that she had discovered some secret? This guess made Zicheng's heart skip a beat. If that was the case, then this Rika couldn't be left alive. No matter if she had discovered something or not, it was abnormal for her favorability to drop so much. Perhaps she should find a chance to make her disappear forever. Rika didn't know that Zicheng already had the intention to kill her. She took a sip of red wine and let the aroma of the wine spread in her mouth. Her eyes slightly narrowed as if she was enjoying the taste of the wine in her mouth. If you want to kill Fengwu without being punished by the school, I have an idea. Rika put down her wine glass and said casually, "What do you have in mind?" As expected, Eve's interest was piqued. She grabbed Rika's hand excitedly. "My method is both difficult and simple." Rika kept him in suspense. "Stop keeping me in suspense. Just say what you want to say." As expected, Eve was hopping mad. Since you don't want to be punished by the school, as long as she's no longer a student of Notre Dame du Starlight, everything will be solved. Eve's eyes lit up. You mean you want her to break the school rules and be kicked out by the school? But was this possible? It was not easy for her to make such a big mistake. What's so difficult about that? Doesn't the school have a rule that if you hurt a fellow student, you'll be punished by the school? And the severity of the punishment depends on how much damage the other party has suffered. We just have to create an accident and make her the murderer of a fellow student. At that time, she'll have no choice but to leave the school. Rika said with a cold smile. She also hated Fengwu very much in her heart. It was just that she didn't show it on her face like Eve did. Having someone who wanted Fengwu dead so badly was the best thing for her. This was practically the best weapon for her, wasn't it? If she used this weapon well, she could return all the pain and humiliation that Fengwu had inflicted on her. Rika still remembered how she was humiliated by a Jur's illusion because of Fengwu. You're right. This is a great idea. Let's see how she'll die this time, Eve said excitedly. She looked at Rika with a much gentler gaze. As the saying goes, the enemy of an enemy is a friend. As long as someone could help her defeat Fengwu, Eve had always been friendly. Seeing this scene, Zicheng became even more determined to kill Rika. Rika was indeed a smart person. Unfortunately, this smart person was suspicious of her. In order to keep her secret, she had to think of a way to get rid of Rika without leaving a trace. Rika didn't know that because of her performance just now, Zicheng wanted to kill her even more. If she knew, who knew what kind of expression she would have? After eating, Rika returned to her original dormitory. The moment she entered, she saw Anika and Silda sitting together and eating snacks. Rika, why are you back? Anika exclaimed in disbelief. Even Silda was looking at her with a frown. He was very puzzled by Rika's return. Ever since Rika was humiliated by a Jur, she had been very close to Zicheng and the others. Some time ago, she even moved into Violet's dormitory and went in and out with Zicheng. For a long time, they could see Rika, Zicheng, and Eve together. Even Anika wasn't as close to her as before. They all thought that Rika would never come back. They didn't expect her to come back to the dormitory. What happened? Could it be that she had some conflict with Zicheng? Anika worriedly guessed the reason for Rika's return. She still had feelings for Rika. After all, they were very close friends in the first semester. Not only were they in the same dormitory, but they were also in the same class. They had always been close to each other in school. However, as her relationship with Zicheng and the others improved, Rika became more distant. I'm also a part of this dormitory. Why can't I come back? Rika said expressionlessly. Didn't you move into Zicheng's dormitory? Silda was also curious about the reason for her sudden return. Then I won't be able to move back here. Leaving the sentence behind, Rika turned around and went upstairs. Anika and Silda looked at each other, not knowing what to say. I'll go up and take a look. Annika was still quite worried about her friend. She wondered if her friend had encountered something difficult to solve. Go on. Remember to tell me firsthand when you come down, Silda said. 3 black lines appeared on Rika's forehead. Gossiping at a time like this. After Anika went upstairs, she knocked on Rika's door and entered Rika's room. Rika was sitting lazily behind the desk, scribbling in a notebook. Anika didn't know what she was writing. When Fengwu returned to the dormitory, it was almost evening. The sky was no longer bright and was covered by a thin layer of black gauze. Fengwu had just opened the door when Silda pulled her to the side. Xiao Wu, big news. Rika is back, she said mysteriously. Fengwu blinked in confusion. So what? Fengwu was confused. What was so surprising about Rika's return? She lived here anyway. Wasn't it normal for her to come back? Silda was really strange. Are you stupid? You know that because a Jur stood up for you last time, the two of you became enemies. She even moved into Eve's dormitory for so long because she didn't want to see you. I'm sure she came back this time because of you. She didn't come with good intentions, Serd said with a look of disappointment on his face. Because of her? Because of her? Fengwu couldn't understand why Rika would come for her. She blinked in confusion. Chapter 426. Sildar was speechless. Just as he was about to say something, Annika came down. Annika's expression was a little strange. She seemed to be in deep thought. Sildar took 2 steps forward and grabbed Rika's hand. How is it? Did you get anything out of her? Annika was stunned. Rika didn't say anything to me, but I feel that she's weird. She seems to have something on her mind. Annika said worriedly. Don't worry. What could possibly happen to her? She's very close to Zicheng and Eve now. Even if she has something on her mind, her 2 good friends will definitely help her solve it. Sildar said nonchalantly. If Rika had something on her mind, it would definitely be related to Fengwu. She was most likely up to no good. Is that so? Annika was still a little worried, but she didn't say anything else. Forget it. Let's not care about her. Let's talk about the competition. When the new semester started, the school organized an extreme survival competition. All the students from the Swordmaster faculty have to participate. Moreover, all the students from the upper and lower grades are placed in the same arena. It's too disadvantageous for us, the lower grades. I really don't know what the school is thinking. Why would they organize such an unfair competition? Serd complained. All the students from the Swordmaster faculty are going? Annika had heard about the competition. However, the mage faculty was voluntary. They could participate if they wanted to, and no one would force them to. It was the first time she heard about the compulsory participation of the Swordmaster faculty. That's right. Starting from the 2nd grade, all the grades above have to participate. It's too unfair for us, who have just entered the 2nd grade, to be placed together with those seniors. Another competition? Fengwu blinked her big eyes and asked Sildar. Yeah. You just came back so you don't know. This time, the school organized an extreme survival competition. I heard that the top 10 students will be sent to a very dangerous special mission. This competition is to select talents for that mission. Special mission? Fengwu couldn't figure out what the mission was, so she didn't think too much about it. The 3 girls sat on the sofa and began to discuss the extreme survival competition. I heard that the mission is very dangerous. If you want to survive in that place, just strength isn't enough. You also need luck and a certain amount of survival skills. Anyway, the school organized a competition for that mission. No one knows what the mission is. We only know that if we succeed and get selected, the benefits are extraordinary. I heard that we have a chance to join the Star Hall. Annika's face filled with yearning when she mentioned the Star Hall. If you want to join the Star Temple, why don't you join the School of Theology? Those fellows in the School of Theology are either divine officers or saintesses after they graduate. Those are the lucky ones who directly join the Star Temple, Sildar said. Annika said angrily, You think I don't want to? I went to the Star School when they were recruiting, but the teachers there said that I don't have divinity and can't communicate with the gods. They wouldn't accept me no matter what. Annika was very indignant at this point. She wanted to join the Star Hall since she was young, so she always aimed to become a saintess. She never thought that she would be rejected by the Star School because she didn't have divinity. In the end, she had no choice but to apply for the Notre Dame du Starlight. She felt very miserable when she thought about it. Then are you planning to participate in the extreme survival competition this time? Of course. I have to grab this opportunity no matter what. This might be the only chance in my life to join the Star Hall. Annika clenched her hands with determination. Fengwu remembered that she had a friend from the Star Hall. Was the Star Hall that amazing? Why did Rika want to go to the Star Hall so much? The Fengwu girl who wasn't a native couldn't understand at all. The people of this world worshipped and yearned for the Star Hall. A few days later, school started. The news of the extreme survival competition had already spread throughout the school. All the students were looking forward to the competition. In this atmosphere, the school suddenly issued a notice to punish a group of students. A total of 4 students were given major demerits. These 4 people were Zicheng, Feng Yanran, Mildy, and O'Brien. The 4 of them were given major demerits because they didn't listen to their captain's orders and acted on their own. Feng Yanran and the other 2 were a bit better. There were some students who didn't listen to their captain's orders before, but after they were given demerits, they became much more obedient. But what the hell was with releasing a monster? How much courage did one have to do something like that? It was a miracle that they weren't expelled by the school. Why do you think Zicheng released that monster? How would we know? I really couldn't tell. She's usually gentle and soft. You really can't judge a book by its cover. Isn't that right? That's why the more beautiful a woman is, the more different she looks. When choosing a woman, you should choose someone like me who looks the same. A chubby girl with freckles on her face said. Next to her, a group of boys immediately jeered. Zicheng walked past these students with a pale face. Ming Shi really reported her. Fortunately, she always had a good impression in the teacher's eyes. She had already explained that it was because she didn't know that there was a monster suppressed inside that she pulled out the suppressing demon sword. The school didn't have any evidence to prove that she knew that the suppressing demon sword was suppressing a demon general. This was why she was only given a major demerit. If it was proven that she knowingly committed a crime, she was afraid that she would immediately be expelled from the school. Eve saw that she suffered such a big grievance. How could she still stand there? She wanted to rush up and tear apart those people who were talking nonsense. Zicheng didn't want to provoke public anger at this time. He pulled Eve and didn't let her act rashly. The 2 of them quickly walked 2 steps away from this area. Zicheng's craze of pulling out the sword and releasing the demon hadn't passed yet. He didn't expect that another big thing would happen in the school. A student in the school was killed. The killer and the killed were both people on the demerit list. The one who died was O'Brien. The one who killed was Mildy. This murder case only happened for a day, but it caused a sensation in the entire school. Mildy and O'Brien, this fiancé couple, were relatively well known. Both of them were of noble birth. However, O'Brien's family was already going downhill. If Mildy didn't like O'Brien and asked her parents to help O'Brien's family wouldn't have had the chance to recover. Mildy's love for O'Brien could definitely make any man envious. A woman was willing to do everything for you and even promote your family. This was simply the dream of many men. However, O'Brien had always been indifferent to Mildy. This made many girls feel that Mildy wasn't worth it. Mildy didn't have many female friends. Before she met O'Brien, Mildy also had some friends. However, because she suspected that they were interested in O'Brien, she alienated them. Chapter 427. Milty's love for O'Brien was as hot as the sun in July. No one would have thought that the 2 would end their love in such a way. Oh my God, Milty really killed O'Brien. Didn't she love that man very much? Why did she kill him? How would I know? Could it be that the love was so deep that she cut him off? Could it be that O'Brien had another girlfriend behind Milty's back and wanted to break up with her? Milty couldn't take it, so she killed O'Brien. It's possible. With Milty's personality, it's possible. Some of the people who knew Milty and O'Brien had come up with several scripts about the love and grudges between the 2. You're all wrong. Let me tell you the truth. A female voice said mysteriously. You know, everyone was doubtful. Please, I know that my brother isn't here. I, Jerriot, was in the same traveling group as O'Brien. I guarantee that no one knows better than me about the love and hate between the 2 of them. The person who spoke was actually Jerriot's sister. After Jerriot came back to school, he chatted with his sister a little more. He even used the love triangle between O'Brien and the other 2 as a negative example to educate his sister. If he knew that his sister had spread the words about him educating his sister, he would probably give her a good spanking. That's right, something like this happened right after returning from a trip. Something must have happened while you were traveling. Quick, tell me what happened. The onlookers felt that what she said made sense. Hence, they gave her a seat and let her stand in the middle to talk. Jerriet's sister proudly walked to the middle of the crowd and described the love triangle between Fong Yenran, O'Brien, and Milty vividly. It was as if she had seen it with her own eyes and listened to Jerriet's sister's story. Fong Yenran had turned from a new goddess to a shameless mistress. She had caused the death of one of the two fiancés. Who knew what would happen to the other? No matter what the relationship between the two was, O'Brien was a student of Notre Dame du Starlight. The school didn't allow students to kill each other. Milty killed a student of Notre Dame du Starlight. She would definitely be expelled from the school. Before that, she would be locked in the reflection room to reflect. The reflection room wasn't just a place for reflection. There were all kinds of dangers inside. Staying in there for a day felt like a year. There was once a senior who killed his classmate out of jealousy. As a result, he was punished and sent to the reflection room for 10 years. After 10 years, he would be expelled from school. Back then, when that senior came out, he had already been tortured to the point of insanity. His entire body no longer resembled a human. His appearance was simply terrifying. Since then, no one wanted to enter the reflection room. They all regarded entering the reflection room as a dangerous path. Because Fong Yenran interfered and caused her fiancé to fall in love with someone else, Milty angrily killed her scumbag fiancé. However, she paid for it with her own life. As a mistress, the destroyer of Milty and O'Brien's relationship, Fong Yenran didn't suffer any harm in this incident. This made most of the students in the school dissatisfied with Fong Yenran. The students who hated her soon accounted for more than half of the students in the school. This was an unimaginable blow to Fong Yenran, who was popular with boys as soon as she entered the school. Fong Yenran suddenly became a rat on the street. She was almost killed by those girls who didn't like her. Her life could be described as an abyss of suffering. Less than 2 days after Milty killed her fiancé, another big incident happened in the school. Milty committed suicide. When the news came out, the whole school was in an uproar. No one thought that Milty would commit suicide. How much did she love O'Brien? She was willing to commit suicide for him. Milty's death caused a great uproar. However, the school had just started and 2 students had died. For this matter, a teacher was specially sent to investigate. In the end, the results of the investigation showed that Milty did commit suicide. There were no traces of murder. This incident ended with Milty's death. The relationship between Milty's family and O'Brien's family was completely broken. Since then, the 2 families had become mortal enemies. I heard that Milty left a suicide note before she died. The suicide note explained how she killed her fiancé and why she wanted to commit suicide. Ajur and Fangwu sat together in the student cafeteria, enjoying the delicious food on the 3rd floor. Why did she want to commit suicide? O'Brien didn't like her. She could have just found someone who liked her. Master also said that feelings can't be forced. Forcing a relationship won't lead to happiness. Fangwu took a bite of barbecued meat and looked at Ajur with a serious face. Probably because she loved him too deeply. Milty's character was a bit extreme. She valued love more than anything else. She didn't have any dignity in front of O'Brien. A smart woman wouldn't put herself in such a low position. Ajur didn't have any good feelings towards Milty. A crazy woman who went crazy for love was simply a lunatic. Xiao Wu, you can't be like this in the future. No matter how much you like Senior Ming Shi, you can't be like Milty. Ajur took the opportunity to educate her. Fangwu nodded obediently. She wasn't Milty. How could she be like Milty? Milty's and O'Brien's deaths were spread around the school for a few days. That was because the extreme survival competition had started accepting applications. Other than the swordsman department, there were also applications from the mage department, pharmacist department, music department, alchemy department, and formation department. There were many applicants from the other departments. Everyone was aiming for the 10 spots to enter the Star Hall. The Star Hall rarely recruited outsiders. This was a rare opportunity to enter the Star Hall. As long as one had the heart, no one would be willing to give it up. The extreme survival competition this time was divided into a team competition and an individual competition. The team competition consisted of 10 people in a group, while the individual competition only counted the results. The competition was carried out in the virtual realm. The arena was simulated by the virtual realm. It was a 100% realistic competition. The fiery and tea-like sign-up activities made the shadow brought by the deaths of Enmilde and the others disappear a lot. As a member of the swordsman department, Fengwu didn't need to register. She just needed to participate in the competition. Ajur wasn't interested in the spot to enter the Notre Dame du Starlight. He didn't register at all. Zicheng, Eve, and Irene had already registered. Zicheng wasn't interested in the spot to enter the Star Hall. She was only interested in the legendary special mission. What kind of mission would make the school spend so much effort to prepare? She thought that she would find out. Needless to say, Irene would also participate. The time to snatch the female lead's opportunity had arrived. The Heart of Wood. This time's mission was related to the Heart of Wood. Irene herself had wood elemental magic talent. When the time came for her to obtain the Heart of Wood, her strength would definitely rise to another level. Chapter 428. In order to get the Heart of Wood, she had to get into the top 10 in this competition no matter what. However, this competition was not easy. It was a test of her survivability and adaptability. Although it was a little difficult, she was confident that she would get into the top 10. There were many people who were as determined as Irene. Everyone wanted to get into the top 10. As for what the special mission was, it was not that important. As long as they could get the chance to enter the Star Hall, it did not matter what the mission was. Tianya, this is your chance to show off. No one in the Swordmaster department is your match. Arguros elbowed Tianya and smiled a little wretchedly. Tianya did not even look at him. He focused on wiping the long sword in his hand with a white cloth in his hand. His attitude was serious, as if he was doing something very important. Stop fooling around. Have you registered? I plan to show off my skills in this competition, Ruglas said eagerly. Of course. Arguros patted his chest proudly. All right, is Mingxi going? Ruglas suddenly asked. Of course he is. He has already registered. This time, our whole team will go together. Elena will go too. Let's see who can stop us from getting into the top 10. Arguros was very confident in the overall strength of their team. Other than Mingxi team, there were many other teams that participated in the competition together. Although the teams were randomly grouped, they might be lucky enough to be grouped together. Amidst the cheering, the Extreme Route Survival competition finally began in the virtual realm. Good morning, everyone. It's now 8 o'clock in the morning. As a 7th grade senior, I, Tamancha, will be the one to announce the live report of our temple's Extreme Survival Challenge competition. I believe everyone has already recognized the person beside me. Let us welcome the Vice President. Following Terrasa's agitated words, thunderous applause rang out. F***CK. It really is the Vice President. The Vice President is actually here to be the host? I'm not dreaming, am I? The Vice Principal sat on the stage and waved at the students below. In the school in the Mirage, a magic screen appeared in midair. On the screen, the Vice Principal and Terrasa's faces were very clear. Even the corner of the Vice Principal's mouth, which was hidden under his white beard, was clearly shown. Outside the school, a large group of people had gathered to watch the fun. These people were not Notre Dame du Starlight's people. They were leaning against the wall and the gate, watching the activities of Notre Dame du Starlight with great interest. This year's Extreme Survival Challenge will be divided into a team competition and an individual competition. Now, our Academy's teachers will teleport all students into the arena. After entering the arena, please memorize the rules. If you are found to have broken the rules, you will immediately be disqualified. Tamancha pretended to blink playfully, which immediately caused many boys below the stage to howl. Passing through the door of light, all the participating students of the school arrived at a spacious square. On the square, there were all kinds of survival tools. On the stage, a teacher explained the rules of the team competition to the students. The team competition consisted of 10 people in a team. The whole team had to reach the finish line to win the competition. If one person did not reach the finish line, the whole team would be disqualified. The teams were randomly formed. Before the competition began, the main god of the mirage, or in other words, the weapon spirit, would announce the names of the teams. The names were all randomly written by the main god of the mirage. It was absolutely fair. Of course, it was very likely that there would be serious discrepancies in the team list made by the Lord God. However, luck was also a kind of strength. If one was unlucky and was placed in a weak team, one could only say that they were a little unlucky and could not blame anyone. Before forming a team, all the contestants had to do was to pick out what they needed the most from the large pile of outdoor daily necessities and bring it with them. Each person could bring 5 items that they deemed necessary. They could choose less, but they were not allowed to choose more. Fengwu chose a tent in the wilderness and a magic water purifying tool. The magic water purifying tool was able to purify water. In the real world, a magic water purifying tool like this would cost a fortune. It could only be mass-produced in a virtual world like the Mirage. Apart from the tent and the magic water purifying tool, she also chose a flint and a dagger. Finally, she asked for an iron pot, the kind used for cooking. Fengwu was the first one to pick out all 5 items. Many people still didn't know which one to pick out right away. Most of them chose flints, some chose tents, and even more chose weapons. Because magic and do-chi were prohibited in the competition space, weapons like magic tents and magic swords would not appear at all. The items on the square were ordinary weapons. There were sabers, swords, and daggers. There were also bows and axes. There were even wooden sticks. However, not many people chose wooden sticks. Most of the boys chose sabers or swords. Some of the younger students chose swords or daggers. None of them chose wooden sticks. After choosing the weapons they needed, the main god announced the names of the teams. Fengwu was in the same group as a few boys and girls that she did not know. Among them, there were 5th-year seniors and 2nd-year juniors like Fengwu. In short, the ranks of the team were uneven. Furthermore, the way the seniors looked at Fengwu and the others was as if they were dragging them down. There were 6 boys and 4 girls in the group. Among the 6 boys, there was a 5th-year student, 2 4th-year students, and 3 3rd-year students. Among the 4 girls, there was a 4th-year and a 3rd-year student. The remaining 2 were Fengwu and a 2nd-year magician girl. This kind of team was not strong, but it was not weak either. Most of the participants were from the Swordmaster department. There were not many magicians. Their entire team only had a 2nd-year magician girl. Apart from the Swordmaster department, there were also 3 people from the Alchemy department, Music department, and Alchemy department. There were not many people in the entire team who could fight. If they were to encounter a battle, they did not know if they could survive. The only 5th-year student present, Ober, scratched his head in annoyance. This kind of team was really hard to inspire confidence in. Since the team was formed, they had no choice but to go. Everyone greeted each other and began to introduce themselves. I am Shinda, a 4th-year swordmaster. I am Keiran, a 4th-year alchemy department student. I am Majan, a 3rd-year swordmaster. My hobby is cooking. You can leave the cooking work to me in the future. Majan was a very cheerful boy. He laughed and said, I am Cabe, a 3rd-year swordmaster. I am Shandy, a 3rd-year music department student. The girl named Shandy said shyly, I am Anma, a 4th-year potions department student. Hello, seniors. I am Kamir, a 2nd-year magician. I am Fengwu, a 2nd-year swordmaster. Chapter 429. I'm Fengwu, a 2nd-year swordsman. I'm Bowen, a 3rd-year mage. I'm Ober, a fifth-year swordsman. After a round of self-introduction, they finally understood each other's abilities and names. After the self-introduction, everyone reported what they had chosen. The 10 of them all chose weapons and flints. Since they couldn't use magic or combat energy, flints were a necessity. About 7 out of the 10 of them chose flints. Only Feng Wu chose a tent. Seeing the tent she chose, everyone immediately labeled her as a hindrance. After seeing Feng Wu's iron pot, she was completely despised by the others. What was the use of an iron pot and a tent? If you were tired, you could just find a tree or a cave to sleep. Why would you need a tent? It was a waste of opportunity. An iron pot was even more useless. Who would choose to use an iron pot during a competition? It was inexplicable. Feng Wu girl, who didn't know that she was despised, was now in a little trouble. Because this competition didn't allow the participants to bring their own storage equipment, the storage equipment they were wearing was the same as the ones prepared by the school. A storage equipment had 20 storage slots, which could only store 20 different kinds of things. Because they had already used up 5 storage slots to choose the things they wanted to bring into the competition, each of them had 15 storage slots to use. And in these 15 storage slots, they had to go to another area to choose the food they wanted to bring with them. Each of them could choose 3 days' worth of food to bring into the competition. After the food was finished, they had to find other edible food in the competition venue. There were many poisonous plants in the competition venue, which meant that they couldn't choose the wrong one. Once they chose the wrong one, they would be poisoned. If they were unlucky, they would be directly poisoned to death and be eliminated from the competition. Dying in the competition venue wouldn't cause any damage to the mental power, because the competition venue was a dungeon. Dying in a dungeon was just being eliminated from the dungeon. It was different from dying in a dungeon. The food provided by the school was very sufficient. There were meat, bread, biscuits, and even steamed buns and steamed buns. Most of the people here chose bread and dried meat, along with a few bags of fresh water. As for water, each person was only allowed to bring 3 water bags. After drinking 3 water bags, they had to find a way to get drinkable water. If they couldn't find any water, their body would be too thirsty and their stamina would drop. If they couldn't find any water, they would be disqualified from the competition due to severe dehydration and would be kicked out of the competition. Feng Wu was the only one in the team who had chosen to use the water purifying equipment. Luckily, the others were a lot friendlier toward her because of her contribution. Feng Wu picked out jerky, meat buns, and steamed buns. After bringing 3 days' worth of food, she also took a water bag. Everything was ready. After all the students had made their choices, they would be sent to the challenge arena in groups. According to the rules, they had to rely on the combined efforts of their team members to survive on the field and find the hidden school emblem on the field. Every team of 10 members had to find one emblem in order to pass the test. Missing one emblem was not an option. It made the competition even more difficult. The challenge arena they would be entering was a spacious space with harsh living conditions. Every minute they spent in it would be more dangerous. Not only would they have to face the harsh living conditions in the challenge arena, they would also have to face the danger of their own kind. They were allowed to steal the badges. If they were unlucky enough to stumble into a super strong team, they could easily be wiped out. Everyone, we can see that the participants are ready. Let's invite the teachers to send these adorable juniors to the challenge arena. Tamancha's elegant voice appeared once again. Soon, the screen showed the students falling from their original positions. It was as if a hole had suddenly appeared in the ground. They all fell into the hole without any preparation. Wow! I realized that our teachers are quite good at playing pranks. These participants didn't even know what happened and they fell into the hole. Tamancha said playfully. The students who weren't participating in the challenge arena had already entered the Mirage to watch the challenge arena. Hearing Tamancha's playful words, they all smiled knowingly. Vice Principal, can you tell us more about the environment the participants will face? I heard that the extreme survival challenge this time is to test the students' ability to survive in harsh environments. May I ask what the purpose of this challenge is? Learn from others. As our students grow older and stronger, they will face all kinds of difficulties. If we are in a place where we can't use magic or combat aura, we will become ordinary people who don't know anything. When that happens, we will know how to survive and think of a way to escape from danger. The purpose of this competition is to train our students' ability to deal with crises, survive in the wild, resist stress, and... The vice principal spoke at length, but the students below the stage didn't buy it. Didn't you say that this competition was changed because you wanted to choose the candidates for the special mission? Don't mention the vice principal's nonsense. If this was really the reason, then this competition should have been held thousands of years ago. Why would we wait until now? The vice principal is getting better at talking nonsense. How can there be such a grand reason, as expected of the vice principal? His ability to talk nonsense is getting better and better. Who is it? Who threw a hidden weapon at me? My ass. Which bastard kicked me? The teachers below the stage were all speechless as they looked at the students who were looking for the culprit. They then looked at the vice principal who was still sitting on the stage and bragging about this competition as if it was healthy and good. It was impossible to tell that he had secretly taught these students a lesson. Brats, you are too careless. Don't you know that the vice principal is extraordinarily strong? He doesn't need to listen carefully to hear what you are saying. What's the difference between this and speaking ill of the vice principal in front of him? Don't you know that the vice principal is famous for being petty? If anyone offends him, he will openly make life difficult for you for a year. After the vice principal's explanation, Tamancha clearly didn't dare to ask the vice principal any more questions. All right. Thank you, vice principal, for giving us such a detailed explanation. Next, we will ask the teachers to help us switch the screen back to the arena. Everyone can watch the performance of each participant through the light screen. Chapter 430. All right. Thank you, Vice Principal, for giving us such a detailed explanation. Next, we'll ask the teacher to help us switch the screen back to the arena. Everyone can watch the performance of each contestant through the light screen. We can now see that the contestants are safely on their way. Following a series of screams, figures fell from the sky one after another, landing on the ground from various positions. Loud bangs rang out. If they were in the real world outside, they would have most likely been seriously injured by the fall. The place where they landed was a desolate and dilapidated small mountain village. The buildings in the mountain had already decayed to the point that they were in a bad state. From time to time, a few skinny rats would run across the village, seemingly a little panicked by the sudden intrusion of humans. Fengwu controlled her body and successfully landed on the ground. She did not suffer any injuries. Although all her strength was sealed in this place, her body's memory was still there. Fengwu could easily complete this landing by relying on her memory of moves and her ability to control her body. Other than Fengwu, the fifth-year Oba, and the fourth-year Swordmaster Shinda, everyone else suffered some injuries when they landed. For a moment, cries of pain rang out everywhere. However, after a few groans, these people quickly adjusted their state of mind and gathered together, sizing up the place where they landed. There was no one in the village, and the houses were almost uninhabitable. The damage was very serious, and it was unlikely that there would be anything to eat in such a house. They did not see anyone else near them, and it seemed that the venue this time was very large. They believed that it would not be so easy for them to meet the other teams. Haha, look at them falling one by one. This is so interesting. Hee hee. Fortunately, I was smart enough not to sign up. Otherwise, with my physique, I might have fallen to my death. What kind of scene is this? Why does it look so miserable? I don't see any natives, only dilapidated houses and malnourished plants. The contestants did not know that their performance on the arena was directly projected on the light screen. Not only were there images on the light screen, but even their voices could be heard clearly. Because the contestants were in different places, the light screen could not watch their landing methods one by one. It could only select some people to focus on. Junior brother Mingxi and junior brother Qianya were assigned to the same team. Isn't this team very powerful? Tamancha gasped in disbelief. She had never expected to see two heavyweights in the same team. Tianya had successfully become a fifth-year student, and Mingxi had also been promoted to sixth year. Those who were familiar with Notre Dame du Starlight knew that the further one went, the slower it would be to level up. This was because the difficulty of the final exam would increase as well. If one's ability was not good enough, one would have to study for 3 or 4 years in just one grade. By the time one graduated, one would already be middle-aged. Of course, if you are sure that you can't be promoted to the 7th grade, you can also apply for early graduation. The school will still give you a diploma, but it will be different from a normal graduation certificate. Mingxi and Tianya had always been geniuses in the school. Both of them were influential figures in the school. If there were no accidents, they would definitely graduate normally. Moreover, they wouldn't need to repeat their studies. It's true. This team is pretty lucky. But the other teams aren't that bad either. Many of them are led by 7th-year seniors. No matter how strong Mingxi and Tianya are, can they be stronger than 7th-year seniors? I don't believe it. The people who appeared on the screen were the members of Mingxi's new team. Mingxi and Tianya were pretty lucky. The only female in the team who had a combat profession was also a pharmacist. Pharmacists were very helpful to them. When they were injured, they could rely on the pharmacist's ability to refine medicine. Unlike Mingxi team, most of the other teams were not so lucky. For example, Elena was assigned to a weak team. She was so angry that she almost vomited blood. The various conflicts between these teams because of the strength of the members assigned to them were shown on the screen. However, the people on the screen did not know about these. Fengwu's team circled around the village. In the end, they didn't find anyone. Fengwu saw a group of Mingxi's starving rats run up to her and look at her pitifully. She took out a steamed bun from her storage space and fed it to them. Ah! Senior Ober, look, Fengwu is actually feeding these disgusting rats with food. A female soprano voice suddenly cut through the sky. The female magician of the same year as Fengwu, Kemi, pointed at Fengwu with a shocked expression. Her exaggerated appearance made people who didn't know better think that Fengwu had done something that angered the heavens. How can you use food to feed rats? We only have 3 days' worth of food to eat. If you finish your food in advance, don't expect the rest of us to share it with you. Kemi said righteously. Many people nodded in agreement. They didn't like Fengwu's practice of wasting food at will. This is my own food, I won't ask you to eat it, Fengwu said, looking at Kemi seriously. The translation of her meaning was, I'm feeding my own food. Even if I don't have enough food, I won't ask you to eat it. So whether I feed the rats with food or not is none of your business. After understanding the meaning, Kemi's eyes turned red with anger. You said it yourself, don't regret it when the time comes. Kemi turned around and left in a huff. The others didn't have the idea to meddle in other people's business. In any case, it was fine as long as she didn't ask them to share her food. As for her food, they didn't care who she shared it with. Fengwu and Shijin didn't like animals like rats very much, and usually had little contact with them, but these rats looked so pitiful that Fengwu couldn't turn a blind eye to them. Besides, she wanted to get some information from them, so she still had to give them the steamed bun. The little rat and several other little friends who smelled the steamed bun ran over and ate it together. Finally, they regained their strength. The rats here were polite and thanked Fengwu very kindly. Thank you, little beauty. If you hadn't fed us, we probably would have died like those humans. When the word died came out of the little rat's mouth, there was obviously a lingering fear. Are all the people in this village dead? Fengwu asked. They died a long time ago, no one is alive, the little rat said. Why did they die? Fengwu asked, puzzled. Because of the plague, of course. The whole village died of the plague. The city lord gave an order to lock up all the infected people in the village and let them fend for themselves. Fortunately, we were smart enough to hide at that time, otherwise I'm afraid even we would have died here. Chapter 431. From the little mouse, Fengwu learned the truth about why the village was abandoned. What was the epidemic? Of course, Feng Wu knew about it. Before she transmigrated, Feng Wu had heard her uncles and sisters-in-law in the village talk about the epidemic when she went down the mountain. Every time they talked about the epidemic, their expressions would change. At that time, Feng Wu was curious and went home to ask her master what the epidemic was. Her master said that it was a disease that was highly contagious. If you accidentally contracted it, you would slowly die without any effective treatment. What is this place? There is no one here. Where did everyone go? Cabe circled around the area. Other than some spiders, mice, and cockroaches, he could not find anything. Let's see if we can find the school emblem, Kairon said as he opened a half-broken door. It shouldn't be here. It won't be so easy for us to find it, and Ma said without much hope. Most people agreed with her. Since this place was used as the starting point, there was no way they would place the important item here. Although they thought so, they still didn't want to give up any hope. One by one, they began to search for their own targets, wanting to see if they could find anything. There was an epidemic here. We should leave this place. Feng Wu knew that the epidemic was highly contagious. Although the village had been abandoned for a long time, they would be in danger if the virus survived. Epidemic. How did you know? Everyone exclaimed and asked at the same time. Some were suspicious, while others did not believe it. It said so, Feng Wu said with a serious face as she pointed at the little mouse that was happily munching on a steamed bun in front of her. You can understand the language of animals? Ober asked with surprise. Understanding animal language was not a big deal. Most adult magical beasts could speak human language. Sacred beasts were born with the ability to speak. Therefore, the ability to understand the language of animals was considered to be rather useless among the talent abilities. However, no matter how useless a skill was, it still depended on when to use it. Now that all of their abilities were sealed, if they could borrow Feng Wu's ability to talk to animals, it would definitely make it easier for them to complete this mission. Understanding animal language? Wasn't that a type of innate ability? Was this girl a natural talent? Although they were quite surprised that Feng Wu had an innate ability, they weren't too jealous, because the ability to understand the language of animals wasn't a good ability among the innate abilities. Instead, it was a relatively useless ability. Because this ability was of little value to them, of course, it wouldn't arouse their jealousy. Yes, Feng Wu nodded. Her master had told her that her ability to understand animal language was not a big deal in this world. She did not have to worry about others knowing about it. Therefore, this time, she did not hide anything. Feng Wu answered honestly. Hearing Feng Wu's affirmative answer, everyone was surprised, but they didn't think it was a big deal. After all, it wasn't a big deal. Is there really a plague here? Xinda frowned as he studied the village. Yes. Feng Wu nodded again. Are you serious? There's an epidemic here? Let's get out of here. It's too dangerous, even though this is just a tournament dungeon. However, the diseases in this instance dungeon can still cause them to fall sick. Although the febrile disease doesn't have much effect on those who have cultivated combat aura and magic, it's definitely a disease that can cause despair to ordinary people. You're right, Senior Ober. We need to leave this place as soon as possible. Because of Feng Wu's natural talent, no one suspected that she was lying. After all, such a lie would not benefit her in any way. Feng Wu, ask it which way we can leave this place, Ober said to Feng Wu. Feng Wu asked the little mouse this question. The little mouse immediately answered, but... You want to leave this place? The little mouse sounded very worried. Yes, Feng Wu said to the little mouse. The way out of this village has been sealed by the mayor. If you want to leave, you can only leave through the forest in the east. But there are many monsters in the forest. If you go in, you may not be able to come out alive. The little mouse thought of the villagers who tried to escape through the forest in the east. None of them came back alive. They were probably all dead in the forest. Feng Wu told everyone what the little mouse said. No one thought that there was a mayor in this dungeon. And the mayor had sealed the way out. Of course, they would not completely believe the words of a little mouse. So, they sent people to look for a way out. But when they came back, they said that there was a powerful seal around them. There was no way out. Fengwu's team had no choice but to go through the forest in the east. The dangerous forest that the little mouse said was the only way out of the village. At this time, the images of each team were perfectly displayed on the screen. Because all the contestants did not land at the same place. Some fell directly from the sky into the trees, and some fell into the water or the nest of a powerful monster. The landing point was actually very important. If you were unlucky, it was very likely that you would be killed by a magical beast before you could even see your surroundings clearly. Fengwu and the others were not very lucky when they landed in a fever-affected village. However, they were much luckier than the others who landed in the same village as them. Because they discovered the truth of the village at the first moment and left the landing point as quickly as possible. Vice President, I want to ask, is there anything different about this village? I saw you smile when you found out that a team was planning to go into the house to collect the loot. Is there some kind of trap waiting for these contestants? Tamancha was very observant. When she found the vice president's expression was not right, she immediately pointed at the image on the screen and asked. Actually, this village is also a test for the contestants. As long as the contestants enter the houses of the villagers and stay in the village for an hour, they will immediately be infected by the epidemic. The epidemic is very contagious. As long as one of the team members is infected, the other team members will be infected if they stay in the house for more than half an hour without knowing. Chapter 432. Unless they can find a cure for the epidemic disease in the dungeon, otherwise, they will be afflicted with a state of continuous loss of HP and weakness. If they can't find a cure before their HP is depleted, they will die due to the continuous loss of HP and weakness and be eliminated from the competition. The vice principal stroked his white beard and said with a radiant smile, "Are you serious? That's too much. At the very least, they should hang a sign in the village. Otherwise, who would know that there are people in that village who have the epidemic disease?" Many of the students who heard the vice president's explanation started to discuss in whispers. "That's right. That's too difficult. Vice President, did you hear that? Some of the students are saying that they should hang a sign in the village. Otherwise, it will be too difficult. After all, no one knows anything about the situation in the village. Don't you think it's unfair to our contestants to release the epidemic virus?" Tamancha sat on the stage and smiled charmingly. "There won't be any unfairness. Because in every village, the main god has already released some information about the village. Once the contestants enter the village, they will be tested on their observation skills and perception of danger. If they are not observant enough, they will not be able to discover the information left behind by the main god. Then, they will be eliminated. We've already made it clear before the start of the competition that this is a survival challenge. The one who survives to the end is the winner. If you want to survive in that kind of environment, you can't just rely on luck. We're mainly looking at your overall ability," the vice president said with a smile. He did not feel pressured at all. "I see. Thank you, Vice President, for your explanation. Next, we will continue to watch the competition." "Oh. There are already teams that have left the village. Don't they want to look around the village to see if there are any school badges?" Tamancha was talking about Fengwu and the others. In the image, they had just come out of the village and were walking toward the eastern forest. The eastern forest was a very strange place. It was because there were all kinds of strange things growing in the forest. There were also some fruits that had never been seen before. "They have entered the forest. Vice President, are there any traps in this forest as well?" Tamancha asked with interest. "This forest is actually a large labyrinth. We've already asked the Lord God to cast many illusions in this labyrinth. Now that the contestants have become ordinary people, it will be very difficult for them to walk out of this huge labyrinth. In order to prevent the contestants from getting food too easily, 80% of the plants in the forest are poisonous. The food they have is only enough for them to survive for 3 days. After 3 days, they will have to distinguish which plants are edible and which are not. It is a very difficult choice. Many of the plants we've asked the Lord God to choose are species that have gone extinct in ancient times, or they're plants that the Lord God created according to His own ideas. They don't exist in reality at all. This will be a huge hindrance to the contestants in finding food. Wow! That's insane. 80% of unknown poisonous plants. In other words, there is an 80% chance that they will all be poisoned to death in the forest. The vice principal is too much. I think it's already very difficult to find some uncommon plants in that forest. Even pharmacists can't memorize the entire plant encyclopedia. Even they have to flip through the book when they need it. That's right, the vice principal is too much. I think it's already very difficult to find some uncommon plants in that forest. Now, the contestants have to choose which of the extinct plants are poisonous, which are not, and which don't exist at all. Does he have to be so insane? The students below the stage started a heated discussion about how insane the vice president was. Tamancha looked at the calm vice president. Don't speak any more, poor children. Don't you know how vengeful your vice president is? If you continue speaking, the vice president will punish you. Even the teachers who were watching by the side cast a few pitiful gazes at the young people who were still in the middle of the discussion. Little fellows, you are indeed too young. Don't you know that you can't speak ill of the vice president in front of him? At this moment, Fengwu and the others still didn't know what was waiting for them in the forest. Fengwu and the others walked into the insane forest. After entering the forest, they quickly discovered a problem. These plants are so strange. I have never seen them before. And Ma, can you tell what kind of plants these are? Asked the only fifth-year student, Ober, who was also their team leader. These. And Ma walked in front and carefully observed. In front of her were rows of colorful plants. The colors were very bright and beautiful. These beautiful plants were very unfamiliar to them. They were all species that they had never seen before. These seemed to be plants that have gone extinct in ancient times. Everyone, be careful. These plants are highly poisonous. Don't touch them. And Ma said seriously, highly poisonous. Upon hearing that they were poisonous, the girls who wanted to pluck some of these beautiful plants to take a look immediately stood further away. Even the boys took a few steps back. After all, who didn't want to come into contact with poisonous plants? Everyone, be careful. This place is too strange. There are many plants that even I don't recognize. Don't touch them. And Ma frowned as she looked at the plants that she had never seen before. Even you don't recognize them? Senior Ma, you're a genius of the fourth-year pharmacist department. How come even you don't recognize these plants? Kemi's eyes widened in disbelief as she spoke. That's right. And Ma, even you don't recognize these? Oba looked at the plants that he didn't recognize and began to worry. If even and Ma didn't recognize these plants, what would they do when the food ran out in 3 days? This was a serious problem that most people had not thought of. Only Anma and Ober had thought of it. And Ma shook her head heavily. As a fourth-year pharmacist genius, she was confident that she could even memorize the complete encyclopedia of medicinal herbs. However, she didn't recognize many of the plants here. She suspected that these plants were most likely extinct and were rarely recorded in the books. This made their competition even more difficult. If they couldn't find food in 3 days, they would most likely starve to death in this place or eat the wrong poisonous plant and be poisoned to death. However, they didn't want to starve to death or be poisoned to death. Chapter 433. The issue of food had become a huge problem for everyone in Fengwu's team. Fortunately, they still had 3 days to find food. The team members began to look for a way out of the forest. Originally, no one thought that leaving the forest would be a difficult task. However, after walking for 5 hours and realizing that there was no change in the surrounding environment, no one thought so anymore. Fengwu quietly listened to the sound in the wind. Look, these guys are back. The Lord God is indeed the best. "These guys didn't even know that they had entered the Lord God's maze," said a mangrove tree with red fruits proudly. "I knew that these fish-lipped humans wouldn't be able to get out," said a big tree with purple fruits. "The Lord God is mighty and domineering. The Lord God is indeed the best. Let these fish-lipped humans wander around here for the rest of their lives." A bunch of flowers, plants, and fruit trees were gloating over their misfortune. These little guys were all very interested in the humans who had just entered the forest. Ever since they were moved here by the Lord God, they had never seen any humans. Now that they finally saw traces of humans, of course, they were happy. In the ethereal realm, other than some small monsters that constantly respawned in the wild, boss-level monsters and some plants, most of them had self-consciousness. In the ethereal realm, there was a set of rules. The excited words of these little guys entered Feng Wu's ears without missing a word. She curiously looked at these little guys a few times. She felt that they were very cute. When she was in the tomb of the sea god, Feng Wu had seen many plants. However, those little guys did not have self-consciousness. When she saw plants with self-consciousness, Feng Wu felt very close to them. "We're back again. A minute, what's going on? I think we might have fallen into some kind of formation. If we don't find a way out quickly, all of us will die here." The others had the same feeling. There were poisonous plants everywhere. Moreover, they had fallen into a formation. If they could not find a way out and solve the problem of food, all of them would be in great danger. As time passed and they were still trapped in this place, everyone started to feel a little impatient. Everyone found a place to sit down and eat their own rations. They didn't bring a lot of rations, so they only ate their own portion. Because they couldn't find the source of the food, they could only leave as much as possible. This way, they could ensure that there would be a certain amount of food to eat 3 days later. Feng Wu's team was not the only one who had fallen into such a crisis. Many other teams had fallen into the traps that the school had prepared for them for one reason or another. These traps were very interesting and unexpected. If they were not careful, they might be eliminated. In a short period of time, some unlucky ones had already been eliminated. According to the rules of the team competition, only when everyone in the team cleared the stage together would the challenge be considered complete. If not, even if one person was eliminated, the entire team would be eliminated. After Jane had something to eat, the team set off again. It was already afternoon. They had to find a way to leave before nightfall because the danger at night might be much greater than during the day. Therefore, at night, the team members did not plan to continue on their journey. Instead, they wanted to find a relatively safe place to rest before nightfall. After walking for another hour, they still couldn't get out. After an hour of observation, Feng Wu also wanted to ask the plants for directions, but it was useless. The task they received from the Lord God was to trap the humans who entered this place. Even if Feng Wu made them feel very close to her, they would not disobey the Lord God's orders. After all, in this world, the Lord God was the ruler. If they did not disobey the Lord God's orders, these plants could still provide some help to Feng Wu. However, Feng Wu wanted them to tell her the way out. This was completely against the Lord God's wishes. Therefore, although these plants wanted to help Feng Wu, they still rejected her request. Unable to find a way out, Feng Wu was a little disheartened. However, she was not angry at these plants for rejecting her. To Feng Wu, these plants were very cute. Even if she was rejected, she would not be angry. The sky soon darkened. Feng Wu and the others found a place to build a fire. They wanted to make do for the night. Feng Wu took out the tent she had chosen and then quickly set it up. There was everything in the tent. There were pillows and a quilt. It should be very warm to sleep in. There was a chill in the night air. In the past, they had the protection of Do Qi and magic. No matter how cold the wind was, they could still use magic and Do Qi to create a protective shield to keep the wind outside. But now, everyone had become ordinary people. When the cold night wind blew on their bodies, they could only try to pull their clothes up a little higher and move their bodies closer to the fire. When the other 9 saw Feng Wu take out the tent, they all looked at Feng Wu with envy. When they had first started to choose their belongings for the competition, they had all thought that the tent would not be of much use. But when night fell, they realized that the tent was very useful. At the very least, it could keep their bodies warm. Fengwu, it's too cold. Why don't we girls squeeze in together? Kemi jumped to Fengwu's side and said coquettishly. Kemi was born with a beautiful and cute face. She was also a student of the mage department. Because of her talent in magic, she had been spoiled by her family. Although she looked like she was discussing with Fengwu, she had already determined that Fengwu would not dare to refuse. They only had 4 girls in total. What right did Fengwu have to monopolize such a tent by herself? When Kemi was like this, she completely did not think that she had chosen these items. What did it have to do with monopolizing something that others had chosen? Kemi, forget it. Don't make things difficult for Junior Fengwu. This tent can only fit 3 people at most. We have 4 girls. How can it fit? Sandy was also very jealous of that tent. But she also knew that it could not fit 4 people. At most, it could only fit 3 people. Kemi said unconcernedly, So what? Fengwu is from the Swordmaster department. Her body must be very good. Me and the other 2 seniors are not students of the Swordmaster department. Our bodies are a little weak. Since we are a team, Fengwu shouldn't mind giving up the tent to us. Chapter 434. She was sure that Fengwu would not refuse. If she dared to refuse, then she would offend 3 people at once. Their team only had 4 girls in total. If she offended the 3 of them, then let's see how she would live in the future. Fengwu looked at her and blinked her eyes, then looked at Sandy and Onma. Sandy's face was a little red, looking a little embarrassed. Onma frowned and shielded Kemi, but did not say anything. What does your health have to do with me? Fengwu did not understand why Kemi would say that. If the 3 of them had problems with their health, then couldn't they just go see a doctor? What was the use of telling her? You. How can you be so unreasonable? We are all in the same team. Don't be so selfish. Kemi's face was red as she loudly scolded Fengwu. Who would have thought that Fengwu would completely ignore her? She only glanced at her and then went into the tent, not saying anything to Kemi. Come out. Do you hear me? Come out. Kemi was about to go crazy. Ever since she was young, she had been loved by everyone everywhere. This woman actually dared to ignore her like this. Sure enough, she was as uneducated as Eve had said. Kemi and Fengwu were in the same year, and she was also a student of the mage department. Among the people that Kemi knew, one of them happened to be Eve, who had some personal grudges with Fengwu. Eve and Kemi's relationship was not bad. Kemi was Zicheng's hardcore fan. In the class, she was the girl that supported Zicheng the most besides Eve. Her favorability with Zicheng had already reached 95%. Very soon, their favorability might reach 100%. In order to increase their favorability, Zicheng had worked very hard in the class. He had done many things to help his classmates. No matter who spoke to her, she would listen very politely. She had never felt impatient. No matter which classmate came to her for help, she would be duty-bound to help them. Although Zicheng's action of pulling out the suppressing demon sword and releasing the devil general was criticized by many people in the school, it actually didn't affect her class that much. Usually, Camille had heard a lot of bad things about Fengwu from Eve. She didn't expect that her luck would be so bad that she would be paired with such a hateful woman in a random team. Eve had said that this woman had never given Zicheng any face. Instead, she was vicious and used her harmless appearance to deceive people. Although Kemi was non-committal, she still believed half of it. In Kemi's opinion, there must be a reason for a person to hate another person. Eve couldn't possibly hate her for no reason. Therefore, she didn't like Fengwu, so she wanted to cause trouble for her. However, she didn't expect that Fengwu would dare to offend 3 girls at the same time. She didn't know what was good for her. Outside the tent, Camille's shouts could be heard distinctly in the stillness of the wood. Enough, Junior Camille. If you still want to shout, then leave this place and go somewhere else to shout. Don't bring harm to all of us. Anma said in displeasure. Oba frowned as he looked at Camille. This Camille really knew how to cause trouble. He was somewhat worried that Camille's self-righteous personality would cause some trouble in the future. Camille didn't know that she had already been targeted by Captain Oba. She had become the focus of attention, so he was afraid that she would be a burden. After being shouted at by Anma, Camille finally became well-behaved and didn't dare to speak again. Fengwu slept soundly and sweetly in the tent. She didn't care about the noise outside at all. The night passed just like that. The next morning, the clear sound of birds could be heard in the forest. The first rays of sunlight shone through the leaves onto the faces of Oba and the others. This night, they didn't sleep deeply. Although they were sitting by the fire, the weather was still a bit cold. The boys were fine, but the girls couldn't stand the cold at night. Several girls huddled together for warmth. Camille suggested that they all go into Fengwu's tent to sleep together. However, no one agreed. Shandy was too embarrassed to snatch her junior's tent. As for Anma, as a genius of the fourth-year pharmacist department, she disdained to do such a thing. Therefore, the matter of snatching the tent had become a one-man show for Kemi. After putting away the tent and eating breakfast, Fengwu followed behind everyone in high spirits and began their new journey. Other than Fengwu, most of the others weren't in good spirits. Because of the change in weather last night, no one slept much. In addition, sleeping in this kind of forest made them feel insecure. Therefore, other than Fengwu, no one else really fell asleep. Today, as Fengwu walked, she would climb up some fruit trees to pick fruits when she passed by them. When she saw some edible wild vegetables, she would also pick them and put them in her space. Of course, Fengwu didn't know if these things were edible or not. However, she could hear some sounds from the other plants. From the other plants, she could tell which ones were edible and which weren't. Seeing Fengwu pick wild fruits along the way, everyone was curious. Finally, Anma couldn't help but ask, "Junior Fengwu, aren't you afraid that these fruits are poisonous? You dare to pick them so casually?" Anma was a genius pharmacist in the fourth year. She was confident that she knew these plants the best among everyone. Because of their profession, no one else knew more about these plants than her. Seeing Fengwu pick wild fruits casually, she wasn't thinking about whether Fengwu could tell which ones were poisonous or not. Instead, she was worried that Fengwu would poison herself to death by eating random things. It had to be known that this was a team competition. If one person was eliminated, it meant that everyone was eliminated. Therefore, if Fengwu was poisoned to death, it meant that all of them would have to accompany her and withdraw from the competition. Thinking of this, Aubert and the others were also worried that Fengwu would be poisoned to death in this place. If that happened, all of them would be implicated by her. Junior Fengwu, if you're not sure if these fruits are edible, then don't pick them. If they're poisonous, all of us will be in trouble. That's right. Please think about all of us. Kemi had long disliked Fengwu. Seeing that someone was criticizing Fengwu, she naturally didn't want to fall behind and immediately jumped out. Don't eat random things. This is a team competition. If one person dies, the whole team dies. I hope you can remember this. Aubert said with a cold face. I'm not randomly picking them. These things are clearly edible. Fengwu widened her eyes and looked seriously at the others. Kemi sneered, "You think it's edible just because you say so?" Senior Anma is a genius pharmacist in the fourth year. Senior Anma didn't say that it's edible. Could it be that you're better than Senior Anma? Fengwu didn't give her face. She also didn't want to let Fengwu have an easy time. It would be best if she was hated by everyone. Chapter 435. Senior Anma, are the fruits and weeds Fengwu just picked edible? Kemi turned to ask Anma. I'm not sure either. Anma didn't know much about plants from ancient times. Most of the plants from ancient times had already gone extinct, and there were no records of them in many books, so Anma really didn't know much about them. She couldn't determine which fruits were edible and which were poisonous, so she could only answer that she didn't know. See, even Senior Onma doesn't know. How can you know which ones are edible? Don't joke around. Kemi snorted disdainfully. Fengwu didn't say anything. She just casually took out a fruit from her space, wiped it on her clothes, and opened her mouth to take a big bite. With the sound of the fruit entering her mouth, everyone's expression changed. If Fengwu was poisoned to death, it meant that all of them would be eliminated. Absolutely not. However, Fengwu had already eaten the fruit, and it was too late to stop her. Everyone blamed Fengwu in their hearts for not being sensible. Why couldn't she think for everyone? Before she ate it, didn't she think that she would be eliminated from the competition if she died from eating it? Everyone was unhappy, but there was nothing they could do. She had already eaten the fruit, and it was useless for them to stop her. Now, they could only hope that the fruit was as poisonous as Fengwu said. Soon, Fengwu finished eating the fruit, and her body didn't have any adverse reactions. Another hour passed, and there was still no reaction from her. Maybe, this fruit could really be eaten. It could be eaten. Did this mean that they wouldn't have to starve in 3 days? This fruit can really be eaten. Sandy's surprised voice sounded. She had been worried about what everyone would do after 3 days. The problem of food had become a huge stone pressing down on everyone's hearts. Now, they didn't have to worry about anything. They had found something to eat. In the blink of an eye, Fengwu had transformed from a junior who was a hindrance to a hero who had saved everyone. While everyone climbed up the tree to pick the fruit that Fengwu had just eaten, outside the arena, the conflict between Fengwu and her teammates was clearly transmitted on the screen. Wow! That girl called Fengwu is too amazing. She can even recognize an ancient plant. What's wrong with that? Maybe she just guessed it. Guessed? Show me if you have the ability, then. But that girl called Kemi's personality isn't that good. Fengwu didn't offend her, so why is she always picking on her? TSK, I don't know. Didn't you remember anything when you heard the name Fengwu? Remember what? She is one of Scholar Ming Shi's pursuers. Last time, the matter of her proposing to Senior Ming Shi at the student cafeteria was big enough. Later on, many scandals about her were exposed. Later on, it was confirmed that the news was wrong and lacked authenticity. Kemi is also one of the girls in our class who has a crush on Senior Ming Shi. She has long disliked Fengwu's high-profile proposal to Senior Ming Shi. In addition, Senior Ming Shi also brought Fengwu along on this trip, so Kemi is extremely jealous. It's normal for her to pick on Fengwu. So that's how it is. But how did you know? How could I not know? That Kemi is in our class. She has a princess syndrome. Just looking at her is annoying. A few girls gathered together and started gossiping about Kemi. Poor Kemi still didn't know that her background was about to be exposed. Through the images sent back by the holographic screen, everyone can see that this girl named Fengwu actually has the ability to distinguish edible plants. This is really unexpected. Originally, we all thought that after this team entered the forest, they wouldn't be able to hold on for long. Who would have thought that things would take a turn for the better, giving them a glimmer of hope? What will they do next? Let's wait and see. Tamancha's voice clearly traveled into everyone's ears. Even the onlookers outside the school could hear it clearly. Among the onlookers, there were a few acquaintances of Fengwu. F*CK, that woman is really asking for a beating. She dares to cause trouble for Xiao Wu. If I see her next time, see how I'll deal with her. Ting Feng said with a glare. Count me in. When the time comes, we'll beat her up together. Ting Yu said as she waved her little fist. We haven't seen each other in so long, and Xiao Wu is still so dumb. Pei Qing shook his head and sighed as he stared at the hologram. The three of them were the 3 members of the expert team. They had heard that Notre Dame du Starlight would be holding an extreme survival challenge, and had thought that they might be able to see Fengwu and Ajur, whom they hadn't seen in a while, so they had come to take a look. They hadn't expected to see Fengwu's competition not long after they had stood there. Feng Wu still didn't know that 3 old acquaintances were outside complaining about the injustice she had suffered. The 3 of them had already decided to wait until after the competition to put a gunny sack over Kemi's head. Because Feng Wu had found an edible fruit, the members of the team didn't have to worry about food anymore. Feng Wu's identity had also undergone a huge change. Her ability to identify plants was extremely useful in this place. As long as there was food, they could slowly find their way out without worrying about being poisoned or starved to death in this place. After having food, everyone's mood improved a lot, and the pressure in their hearts also lessened a lot. In order to leave this forest, they began to rack their brains and think of all sorts of ways. They tried to leave a mark on the tree, but no matter how they walked, they would always return to the original place. It turned out that they had actually been walking in circles in this place all this time, and hadn't left this area at all. This was definitely not good news for Feng Wu and the others. They had to leave this forest as soon as possible and find the school emblem. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to pass the team competition at all. Standing in the forest, they could hear the sounds of birds and insects. There were also many creatures living in this forest, but other than hearing the sounds, they couldn't see anything. Even if Feng Wu wanted to find a small animal to ask for directions, it wouldn't be possible. Day after day passed, and Feng Wu and the others had been trapped in the forest for 10 days. Finally, on the 11th day, they successfully left the forest. Although the forest was a trap, they had also found 2 school emblems in the forest. As long as they gathered 10 more school emblems, it would mean that they had passed the team competition. Out of the forest, there was a flat path. In front of the path was a village. This village wasn't abandoned, and they could see many people walking around. Great, there are people in front, Kemi said excitedly. Chapter 436. They had been munching on wild fruits and vegetables for the past few days. Feng Wu's water-purifying equipment and iron pot had come in handy. They were even able to eat wild vegetable soup in the woods. If it weren't for the soup, eating wild fruits every day would have made them puke. Now that they had finally seen some signs of human habitation, they could finally go to the village to get some food and a good rest. It would be perfect if they could find the school emblem in the village. With this thought in mind, the group walked briskly toward the village. Currently, everyone was filled with joy. Even though they were on high alert, they were more eager to reach the village as soon as possible so they could have a good meal and have a good rest. They had been living in the woods for 10 days, yet they had not had a good night's sleep. Finding a place where they could have a good rest was simply too tempting for them. As they approached the village, they could clearly see the people moving around inside. This place. Feng Wu frowned slightly. A strong aura of resentment appeared in front of Feng Wu. Feng Wu did not notice it when she was quite a distance away, but when she got closer, she realized there was a strong aura of resentment in the village. Among the resentment, there was fear, despair, and other emotions. Feng Wu had no idea what was going on, but the strong aura of resentment was telling Feng Wu that the village was extremely dangerous. It was definitely not a good place. After analyzing the possible danger of the village, Feng Wu quickly took a step forward and blocked the path of the others. "What are you doing?" Kemi glared at Feng Wu, who had suddenly blocked her path. She could not wait to enter the village to rest. She did not want to waste any time with Feng Wu here. "The village is very dangerous, you can't go in," Feng Wu said. Hee, it's dangerous just because you say so. I insist on going in, what can you do about it?" Kemi waved Feng Wu's hand away and strode forward. "What's going on?" As the captain, Oba was quite rational. After spending so many days together, he believed that Feng Wu wasn't someone who would talk nonsense. If she said that there was danger ahead, then it was very likely that there was some danger in the village that no one had discovered yet. "There's a strong aura of resentment in the village ahead. Although I don't know what's going on, it's very dangerous," Feng Wu answered seriously. Resentment. Oba didn't expect this to be the danger Feng Wu was talking about. But could she see resentment? Weren't necromancers the only ones who could see these things? How did Feng Wu see it? If she had the talent to become a necromancer, Why would she enter the swordmaster department? In people's minds, becoming a magician was much more amazing than becoming a swordmaster. Ah! A monster! Just as Oba was about to ask a few more questions, a scream came from not far away. The one who screamed was Kemi. No one noticed that while Oba and Fangwu were talking, she had already run into the village. She had only been in the village for less than a minute, but she had already let out such a miserable scream. Not good. Everyone was shocked. Their bodies reacted faster than their brains, and they had already rushed out of the village. Although everyone already believed Fangwu's words about the village being dangerous, because Kemi was trapped in the village, they had no choice but to go in and save her. It was all because of these damned rules. If they couldn't save her, then they wouldn't be able to continue the competition. When everyone rushed into the village, they saw that the villagers in their eyes had turned into terrifying monsters. These monsters didn't look like humans because they had fangs in their mouths, and their eyes were as red as blood. Their skin was so dry that there wasn't any moisture in it, and their bodies were as stiff as zombies. Their movements didn't seem very agile. If Zicheng and Irene were standing here, they would definitely scream in their hearts. Zombies. That's right, these things were actually zombies. Back then, Longza Gamer had specially designed zombies, which were popular in the 21st century, to be a type of dungeon monster in the virtual realm. The main storyline of this competition was related to zombies. It was just that they didn't know about it yet. What is this thing? And Ma cried out in surprise. No matter what it is, take Kemi away first. As Oba spoke, he had already pulled out the long sword in his hand. He slashed at the zombie that was chasing Kemi. What happened next surprised Oba. He didn't expect the zombie's body to be so tough. He was full of confidence that he could finish off the monster with one slash, but he didn't expect that the zombie's body would be as weak as a rock. Although the zombie's body was injured by his slash, the zombie chasing Kemi didn't seem to feel anything and continued to attack Oba. Oba's strength had been completely sealed, so he could only rely on his own strength and his memory of sword moves. Without the support of combat energy, the power of these sword moves was reduced to less than 10%. Oba used his sword to fight with the zombie for a long time. Finally, before the zombies in the village surrounded them, he rescued Kemi. Although Kemi was scratched, she was lucky enough to survive. They retreated a few dozen meters away from the village before stopping. When they found that the monsters in the village couldn't chase them out, everyone was completely relieved. They ran to a river some distance away from the village to rest, but found that the river water had turned black. The color was like ink. Let's take a break. It looks like they can't get out of the village. And Ma looked back. In everyone's eyes, the village was now like a monster. What the hell are those things? They can't be killed by swords. Their skin is really thick. Kairon breathed a sigh of relief, but he was also very puzzled. That's right. Those things are too scary. If we hadn't run faster than them, we wouldn't have been able to escape. Megan was also rejoicing in his heart. Don't talk about it anymore. Come and take a look at Kemi. Why do I feel like something is wrong with her? Sandy's anxious voice sounded. What's wrong? And Ma, as the only talented girl in the pharmacist department, immediately went forward to inquire after hearing Sandy's voice. Senior and Ma, come and take a look. Kemi doesn't seem to be well. She's been having a fever since the beginning. We don't have any medicine on us. What should we do? Sandy said anxiously. What's a fever? If she didn't rush into the village so recklessly, we wouldn't have all died in there. Kairon glanced at Kemi, whose face was red from the fever. Because of Kemi, his team almost couldn't pass the team competition. It would be strange if he had anything good to say. Chapter 437. You're dragging us down. Even Bob was too lazy to look at Kemi. This time, because of Kemi's carelessness, she had almost harmed the entire team. The boys could no longer give her any face. There were 4 girls in the team. Anma was a pharmacist and could still be of some use to the team. Although Sandy didn't have any special skills, she was sensible and would do whatever she was told to do. She never threw a tantrum or threw a tantrum. Fengwu had the ability to understand the language of beasts and could identify ancient plants. Moreover, she was a member of the Swordmaster Department, so she could be considered as a fighting force. Among the 4 girls, although Fengwu was a second-year student, she was the most useful one. She was also very obedient and wouldn't cause trouble. Only Kemi didn't have any skills. Every day, besides causing trouble, she mobilized everyone to isolate Fengwu. If one were to use a word to describe her, she would be a retard. She was simply a professional drag for 100 years. Anma also didn't like Kemi, but as a pharmacist, she couldn't ignore Kemi. Anma walked over and checked the 2 deep scratches on Kemi's body. Now, the scratches had turned black. Anma's heart trembled. Things were developing in the worst direction. She's poisoned. Anma's face sank. Poisoned. Everyone exclaimed. It wasn't that they cared about Kemi's body, but she couldn't die. The rules of the team competition were like this. If one person died, the whole team would die. This was no joke. Is there a way to detoxify it? Oba frowned and asked. I'll try, but I don't think there's much hope. This poison is too strange. I don't have any tools on me, so I can't analyze the composition of this poison. Anma felt that the hope of detoxifying it was very slim. After all, this wasn't the real world. There were so many medicines that could be used to detoxify the poison. In this world, the only way to detoxify the poison was to gather the herbs and reformulate the medicine. However, this world was very strange. Many plants seemed to have undergone some kind of mutation. She didn't know if these mutated plants still had any medicinal properties. Even if it still had the medicinal effect, whether the medicinal effect was more or less was a problem that Baisu had to figure out. Refining medicine was not just about burning the medicinal herbs. This involved a lot of knowledge. For example, how much medicinal effect each herb contained was a question that must be known. Only by knowing the medicinal properties of each herb could the success rate of refining medicine be guaranteed. Now that these herbs had mutated, if she couldn't figure out all the ingredients in these herbs, then there was no way for her to successfully concoct the potion. Combining all of the above reasons, it was simply impossible to concoct an antidote for Khmer. There was no way to make a potion, but it was still possible to make a decoction. Anma circled around and successfully gathered some herbs. Then, she borrowed Fengwu's large iron pot and began to boil the decoction for Khmer. Fengwu opened her misty eyes and blinked a few times before regaining her composure. Standing beside her were the other members of the team. The faces of these members were all ashen. They were looking at Khmer as if they wanted to tear her apart. Khmer smiled bitterly as she dodged everyone's gazes that looked like they wanted to eat her alive. The failure of the challenge was not entirely her fault. She felt like she was very innocent. It wasn't like she wanted to be scratched by those monsters. Time returned to 5 minutes ago. It seems like Oba's team is in danger. Khmer's body is showing signs of being poisoned by the attacks of the unknown creatures. Luckily, they still have the genius of the 4th grade, Anma, in their team. I believe this poison shouldn't be too much of a problem for them. Tamancha's voice came through the sound amplification equipment. At this moment, the holographic screen was showing the scene of Anma boiling the decoction for Khmer after the members of Fengwu's team had rescued Khmer. On the screen, Khmer was frowning in pain, as if she was enduring some kind of pain. You're wrong. The moment someone in their team was injured, their team competition had already ended. The vice principal's voice came through at this moment. Could it be that there's some kind of secret behind this? I believe the people at home are also very curious about what kind of challenge the school has set up for the participants in this village. The truth is, the monsters in the village were originally the villagers of the village. The background of the dungeon we set up is a kingdom destroyed by some kind of unknown virus. This virus is like a plague, extremely contagious. Once infected, they will quickly turn into a walking corpse with no consciousness. We call these people controlled by the virus zombies. When a person turns into a zombie, it means that the person's consciousness has already disappeared. All that's left is the desire for human flesh and blood. Zombies are covered in the virus. Once their flesh is scratched by a zombie, they will immediately be infected by the zombie virus. Gradually, the person who is scratched will also turn into a zombie. The antidote for the zombie virus does not exist in that world. Therefore, when Khmer was scratched, Ober's team was already disqualified. The vice principal explained the background of the dungeon. Everyone finally realized that there was such a sinister trap waiting for the participants. Those who did not participate in the competition were all glad that they did not participate. Otherwise, if they were scratched by those monsters and turned into those monsters, they would die a disgusting death. Sure enough, not long after the vice principal finished speaking, a clear scream came through the screen. It turned out that Sandy, who was the closest to Khmer and had been taking care of her, had her neck bitten by Khmer, who had suddenly turned into a zombie. Sandy only had time to scream once before she was completely dead. At this moment, a voice suddenly came from above Ober's team. Since 2 members of your team have died, this challenge is declared a failure. Not long after this voice came out, Fengwu and the others were all teleported out. Failed, they actually failed. Ober's team members could not believe it. In the blink of an eye, their competition was already over. Ober and the others were all aiming for the quota of Star Hole. Losing the challenge meant losing the quota, which was a huge blow to Ober and the others. Khmer did not dare to look back at everyone's eyes. She hurriedly left the virtual world. Although everyone was unwilling, they could not go to the school to kill her. They could only remember Khmer in their hearts. This was especially true for Sandy, who had been bitten to death by Kemi. She hated Kemi the most. Sandy couldn't let go of the terrifying memory of being bitten to death for a long time. That memory was simply too terrifying, and the person who brought her such a terrifying memory was Kemi. How could Sandy forgive her? Chapter 438. This was especially true for Sandy, who had been bitten to death by Kemi. She hated Kemi the most, and the terrifying memory of being bitten to death made Sandy unable to let go of it for a long time. That memory was simply too terrifying, and the person who brought her such a terrifying memory was Kemi. How could Sandy forgive her? Not long after Kemi left the virtual world, the others also left in low spirits. Fortunately, the individual competition hadn't started yet, so they still had a chance. Although they had lost the team competition, if they performed well in the individual competition, they still had a chance to participate in a special mission. Then, they would be accepted into the Star Hall and become a member of the Star Hall. It was just that they didn't get a good result in the team competition. Although they would get a higher score in the individual competition, it wasn't that easy to be chosen by the school to participate in a special mission. If everyone originally had a 50-50 chance of being chosen, then after losing the team competition, their entire team only had a 20% chance of being chosen to participate in a special mission team. Fengwu wasn't as disappointed as Aubert and the others. To her, losing wasn't a big deal. She didn't really care about whether or not she could enter the Star Hall. Thinking about it, she hadn't seen her master for a while. What was he doing? Fengwu thought about it and went to find her master, not caring about the team competition at all. At the same time, in a room in a hotel in the central city, a chubby man and a beautiful woman were sitting in the same room. You failed. The woman's eyes were very cold. Something happened this time. I underestimated the danger level of the sea god's tomb. The chubby man's honest face didn't have a trace of expression. Why did you auction the key I gave you? The beautiful woman asked coldly. I can't attract attention. It's safer to blend in with the crowd. The chubby man, who was Heart, calmly replied. Your mission to obtain the Heart of Water this time failed. His Highness is very dissatisfied with you. I hope you won't make the same mistake next time. You guys went through so much trouble to get me into the sea god's tomb, not to get me to obtain the divine artifact, but to get me to obtain the Heart of Water. Since when did the blood race need to use the 5 elements to cultivate? Don't worry about that. We received news that the humans have already found the location of the Heart of Wood. They will send people to retrieve it in a few days. You must find a way to obtain the heart of wood and atone for your mistake. I understand. Heart nodded. He had been dealing with the vampires for a long time. From the day he decided to work with the vampires, there was no turning back. Outside the Notre Dame du Starlight, in a delicate villa, Feng Yenran was listlessly handing water to the flowers in the yard. These flowers had already bloomed, and the faint fragrance of the flowers made people feel relaxed and happy. Yenran, why didn't you go to the virtual realm to participate in the extreme survival challenge this time? You can't always stay at home. Feng Tianqing carried a tray of snacks and walked to the white round table in the garden and sat down. Mom, because of Mildy and O'Brien's death recently, the way my classmates look at me has changed. I didn't do anything wrong. I didn't ask O'Brien to like me. Why do they say that I'm a bad person? I didn't do anything. Mildy said. Feng Yenran felt that she had been wronged. Because of some of the rumors in school, she had been staying in her mother's house except for going to class. She didn't even dare to go back to the dormitory. She was afraid that her classmates would look at her like she was a mistress. She didn't feel that she had done anything wrong. Was it her fault that O'Brien liked her? She couldn't stop others from liking her. Mildy was the one who did this. It was her and O'Brien's problem. Why did everyone blame her? What did she do wrong? Why did she have to bear the responsibility for their deaths? Even Mildy and O'Brien's family members came to the school and asked the school to expel her. Although the school didn't agree, this matter still spread. Her classmates who used to have a good relationship with her all avoided her. Even the boys who used to chase after her left her side and no longer revolved around her. This made Feng Yenran, who had been popular with her classmates since she entered the Notre Dame du Starlight, unable to accept such a difference. Silly child, you don't have to pay attention to them. They don't know anything. Mom knows that it's not Yenran's fault. Mom has already explained it to the school for you. The school has no evidence to prove that you and O'Brien had a relationship, so you can rest assured. No matter what those classmates think, as long as you don't violate the school rules, nothing will happen to you. Feng Tianqing lovingly pulled Feng Yenran to sit on the chair and coaxed her softly. I'm not worried about whether I will be punished or not. I just don't want to see the way they look at me. Feng Yenran sighed. Good child, you have been wronged. Don't worry, they will soon regret treating you like this today. Feng Yenran was about to say something, but suddenly felt weak. Her bones were aching, and her face was pale. This pain made her feel like she was in hell. Yenran. Feng Tianqing hurriedly stepped forward and helped Feng Yenran back to her room. He found a cup of blood-like red liquid and let Feng Yenran drink it. Feng Yenran drank the liquid, and her whole face slowly regained its color. Mom, I'm in so much pain. When will my body completely recover? I don't want to be like this anymore. Feng Yenran cried sadly. Since she was a child, she had been tortured because she was a hybrid of the Blood Clan and the Human Clan. There were two bloodlines in her body. Although the Human Clan and the Blood Clan were very similar, they must not be of the same race. Therefore, if they crossed species, they would definitely be cursed by the bloodline. Because of the curse, her body had been weak since she was a child. Every once in a while, her bloodline would reject each other. The rejection of each other's bloodlines caused her great pain. If it weren't for the fact that she didn't want her parents to worry, she would have died because she couldn't bear the pain. Feng Tianqing painfully moved the cup that Feng Yenran drank from. The cup was filled with the blood of a virgin. Feng Yenran had to drink the blood of a virgin to ease the pain because of the rejection of each other's bloodlines since she was a child. As she grew older, Feng Yenran's pain became more and more intense, and the time she drank the blood became more and more frequent. Under the field where Feng Tianqing lived, there were several virgins who were used to provide blood for Feng Yenran. These women were all rural women. In order not to attract attention, she specially found a few women with ordinary family backgrounds and were not valued at home. Because these women were not valued by their families, even if they were lost, it would not attract attention. Chapter 439. Feng Tianqing was a very intelligent woman. Otherwise, she wouldn't have been able to get along with Feng Yanran's father for so many years without being discovered by the people of the ancient eastern country. These women were raised by her to relieve the pain of Feng Yanran's bloodline rejection. Because there were virgins for her to take blood every time the illness flared up, no one discovered that Feng Yanran was different and only thought that she was in poor health. Silly child, you just need to endure a little longer. Our Feng family has the strongest bloodline of swordmasters. As long as you absorb the blood of the Feng family's experts, you will definitely be fine. Feng Tianqing touched Feng Yanran's hair, her eyes full of love. Mother, do you want me to absorb grandfather's blood? This won't do. Grandfather is so good to me, I can't do this. Feng Yanran was shocked. She had never thought of absorbing her grandfather's blood. Grandfather had always treated her better than anyone else. Feng Yanran instinctively rejected absorbing Feng Wulyo's blood. You child, your grandfather has always loved us mother and daughter the most. If your grandfather knew that sacrificing himself could save his precious granddaughter, he would definitely be willing to sacrifice himself for us mother and daughter. Feng Tianqing didn't doubt Feng Wulyo's love for her. Feng Wulyo's love for her was completely incomparable to her sister, Feng Tianjiao. Every time she saw Feng Wulyo being cold to Feng Tianjiao because of her, she felt extremely comfortable in her heart. Her mother's attitude towards her was extremely cold because of a divination and even wanted to kill her. She would never forget what happened that night. If it wasn't for her father arriving in time, she would definitely have died in the hands of the woman she called mother and the sister who had always been pampered by her mother. Fortunately, her father didn't believe in that divination and doted on her even more. As for Feng Tianjiao, because of the crime of wanting to kill her biological sister, she was disliked by Feng Wulu. Their identities were swapped after their mother's death. She became the beloved daughter of the heavens, and Feng Tianjiao was regarded by everyone as an unruly, willful, and ruthless woman who couldn't even tolerate her biological sister. She originally thought that Feng Tianjiao wouldn't be able to accept the change in everyone's attitude and would cry and make a fuss. However, she didn't have any reaction. She didn't cry or make a fuss. She didn't even call out who Feng Wulyo and Feng Tianqing favored more. It seemed that other than their dead mother, she didn't care about anyone else. She originally thought that everyone's attitude would let her understand that she was the true genius of the Feng family. Unexpectedly, Feng Tianjiao had never given up on killing her. More than once, she had almost died in Feng Tianjiao's hands. Afterwards, she had no choice but to go to the Blood Moon Forest. She was afraid that if she didn't leave, she would fall into Feng Tianjiao's evil hands. It was also in the Blood Moon Forest that she met Yanran's father, the only man she had ever loved in her life. Her father could disregard Feng Tianjiao for her. Then, for his most beloved granddaughter, shouldn't he make a sacrifice? Fortunately, Feng Wulu didn't know that his own daughter was wholeheartedly thinking of letting his daughter absorb his grandfather's flesh and blood. If he knew, who knew if he would be angered to death? No, I can't watch grandfather sacrifice himself for me. Grandfather is an elder. I can't be so unfilial. Feng Yanran shook her head and rejected Feng Tianqing's proposal. You have to do it even if you can't. If you don't absorb all of your grandfather's bloodline power, you will die. Feng Tianqing looked at her daughter seriously and said, No, I won't die. Because I have a better goal. Feng Yanran suddenly smiled mysteriously. Are you talking about Feng Wu and her little bastard child? Feng Tianqing asked suspiciously. Don't look at how Feng Tianqing always acted like she loved Feng Wu very much at home. In fact, she was very disgusted by the fact that Feng Wu was pregnant out of wedlock and didn't even know who her lover was. Feng Wu was the daughter of her and the man she loved the most. Feng Wu's child was definitely not born out of love. It was just the product of an affair. Feng Tianqing had always been a proud woman. How could she fancy a child born from an affair? My goal is Feng Yi. Feng Yanran said. Feng Wu's son. Feng Tianqing didn't think that her daughter's goal wasn't Feng Wu but her son. But the bloodline in Feng Ye's body shouldn't be pure enough. Absorbing his blood might not be of any use to you. Feng Tianqing said with some worry. No, Feng Ye's blood is very useful. He is the most intelligent child I have ever seen. The life energy in his body is so strong that it's unbelievable. I have never seen such a strong life energy in anyone. As long as I absorb all of the energy in that child, I believe that my body will be able to recover completely. Moreover, I will become much more powerful than you and father can imagine. Feng Yanran didn't know if this was an ability that only mixed bloods of the human race and the blood clan had. She could see through the powerful energy in Feng Ye's body. She instinctively knew that as long as she absorbed the child's life energy, it would be very beneficial to her. It was because of this reason that she was so enthusiastic every time she saw Feng Yi. She really wanted to get along well with that child. This way, she could absorb the child's energy without anyone noticing. Is what you said true? Feng Tianqing really didn't think that Feng Yi would be so useful. Ever since she returned to the Feng family, she had been thinking about whose blood she should let her daughter absorb. Feng Wuliu, Feng Tianqing, Feng Juntian, these were all within her range of choices. She had even considered Feng Wu and Feng Ting. Feng Ting was only the daughter of a lowly girl. It was impossible for her to let her baby absorb the flesh and blood of such a thing. As for Feng Wu, although everyone said that she didn't have any talent, she knew that Feng Wu's talent wasn't any worse than Feng Juntian's. It was just that when Feng Wu was very young, she had already treated Feng Wu as a blood meal that could be absorbed by her daughter in the future. So in order to prevent Feng Wu's strength from increasing, she fed her a medicine that could destroy talent when Feng Wu was still testing her talent. From then on, a super genius who cultivated both magic and martial arts became a cripple in both. And no one in the Feng family doubted that Feng Wu wasn't born a cripple. They thought that she was born this way. Although Feng Wu's talent was destroyed, her bloodline wasn't. As long as her daughter absorbed Feng Wu's flesh and blood, she would definitely be reborn and become a blood emperor. In the normal course of this world, Feng Wu would die with the child on the day of giving birth. Without Feng Wu, Feng Wuliu became the first target of this pair of mother and daughter. Not only did they absorb Feng Wuliu, they also absorbed Feng Tianqing's bloodline in order to be foolproof. Later on, this pair of mother and daughter succeeded. In the entire Feng family, only Feng Juntian survived. Because Feng Yanran represented the blood race and signed a peace treaty with the human race, Feng Juntian couldn't take revenge even if he wanted to. He lived in the pain of not being able to avenge his family for the rest of his life. You're tuning in to the Narrate and Escape YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.